Hi, I'm Mark Dennebaum from What a Week podcast. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're starting a new series called Did You Know? A show where we strive to have one-on-one, transparent, nuanced, and honest discussions with people and topics that seem a little dangerous in today's world. Our first discussion is a very controversial one. On January 6, 2021, a large group of mostly peaceful protesters gathered at the U.S. Capitol to express their concerns about the 2020 presidential election. While the majority of the crowd remained peaceful, there were some instances of violence and chaos, which some believe may have been instigated by agent provocateurs. Among those caught up in the events of that day was Frank Scavo, a Pennsylvania man who had organized his buses to bring 200 people to Washington, D.C. for the January 6 Donald Trump rally. Scavo pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge for unlawfully entering the Capitol building and was sentenced to 60 days in prison. The aftermath of the events of January 6 saw a series of arrests and charges against those involved in the violence. The legal battles and debates surrounding the events of January 6th have been ongoing, with some arguing that the punishments handed down to the defendants were extreme for the crimes they were accused of. The events of January 6th and the subsequent legal proceedings have sparked a debate about the role of law enforcement, the fairness of the criminal justice system, and the right to peacefully protest in the United States. It is important to have conversations about difficult topics as they can help to promote understanding, healing, and growth in society. By engaging in these conversations, we can learn from our past mistakes and work toward a more unified and inclusive future. Healthy conversations allow us to share our thoughts and feelings, learn from each other, and build stronger relationships. Some believe that the media has not accurately portrayed the events of that day, choosing instead to sensationalize and politicize the situation. Let's let you decide that. If you like what you see and you'd like to see more, feel free to donate to our Patreon below. We'd really appreciate it. So, without further ado, here's our conversation with Mr. Frank Scavo.
This is top secret. We're in the Capitol. Stormed the Capitol of the United States at 58 years old. What the is wrong with America? What's it look like?
Look like a beauty.
Your own personal tour of the freaking Capitol. We took it back. Took it back. I hear it. Yes. No, you can't get live. You just got to video it. Don't go live. You got to video it.
My name is Christine Blaze.
Yes,
Christine Blaze.
Christine Blaze.
B-L-A-Y-S. Christine, please friend me on Facebook.
I will.
I have no more memory on my phone.
Christine Blaze. Frank Scavo. Yes.
God bless America.
I got you, honey. Yep. God bless America.
Defend the Constitution. Defend your liberty. Defend the Constitution. Defend your liberty.
Defend the Constitution. Defend your liberty.
Defend your Constitution. Defend your liberty. Defend your Constitution. Defend your liberty. Defend your Constitution. Defend your liberty. Defend your Constitution. Defend your liberty.
So, this is the first time we're doing something like this, where we're having a sit-down interview with someone who the public has a perception of and maybe in real life is not the appropriate or accurate perception of this person. So first and foremost, I would like to thank you, Mr. Frank Scavo, for coming to sit down with us and trying to get some truth out there about what you've been through the last 900 and some days.
Mark, you're welcome. And yourself, you're a Renaissance man. You see the need for this in the market, and you're out there and you're saying, look, let's dispel these aspersions that the public has because the narrative is there. You're trying to say what is really going on. So that's great.
I appreciate the sentiment. So obviously we're here to talk about what you went through. But first things first, I want to kind of like introduce you to people who may have a misconception about you. So can you tell me about Frank Scavo as a person?
Well, pretty much I believe that bad government anywhere results in bad government everywhere. And I'll bring you back to the beginning. My family, my grandfather came over from Italy, worked in the mines for 3 weeks and said, forget it, I'm out of here. Started his own grocery store in Old Forge right on the main street. Long story short, he goes from the mines into the entertainment. He started drive-ins. He started drive-ins. If you remember the Oak Hill drive-in, well, that was the Scavo brothers drive-in right there on Route 11 in Music. Bubbles Angelo Scavo and Frank Breeze Scavo. Brothers had that. They showed Walt Disney movies. This was a family operation, and my grandfather then split and started the Wilkes-Barre Drive-In, which is where the Sam's Club is, which is where the Kohl's is. A huge. We had the largest theater screen east of the Mississippi.
No kidding.
That's great. When you go to Circle Drive-In or used to go to Comerford, those screens are small compared to what the Wilkes-Barre Drive-In was. It was huge. But the reason I say government, all of a sudden the local township, Wilkes-Barre Township, comes to my grandfather and says, hey, we have an amusement tax. He said, what's an amusement tax? What do you mean? We just passed it with council. So on every ticket, the ticket costs 60 cents, and the council wanted 5 cents. So, being a Scavo, being somebody that's we fight for the common man. That's pretty much where a lot of the resentment comes from, because everybody wants you to sit down and shut up.
Yep.
So my grandfather started printing out the tickets, and the ticket said 60 cents admission, 5 cents local amusement tax. Well, now you're the consumer, okay, 60 cents I'm paying to see the movie, 5 cents is going to this governmental entity. What do I get out of it? So as long as the people know what they're paying for and what they're getting, that's part of what I've been living with all my life. It's what my family's done.
So this is like from your childhood. This is like your experiences with your family, and your childhood was like, why are we screwing the people?
Exactly.
Right.
And here's the thing. People have been trying to rip my family off, us, you, for our entire lives. Because when I was a kid, 10 years old, I was working the ticket booth, the admissions. And, it was funny because a girl would pull up, a lot of good-looking girls in those days. I was a young guy, right? Looked at girls. And the girl would be driving, and the car would be down, and I'd hear all these guys in the trunk laughing and kicking. So, she'd try to come in and pay. By this time, the admission was like $1.50.
Right.
So, I'd say, look, I'll give you a deal. $1.50 for you, $3.50 for whoever's in the back. I don't know how many. Give me $5. I'll let you in. So people have been trying to tell me day is night and night is day for a long time.
Right.
But I've been able to work through that and say, okay, look, here's the common ground we could come through. You want to go see the movie with your buddies. Maybe you don't have enough money. So $5 for a carload is the deal. So that's what I've been dealing with my entire life. Somebody's always trying to get one over on you. Somebody always thinks that, you're not smart enough. But in the end, there's some common ground that, look, we'll make some money and you'll go see the movie.
It doesn't seem very authoritarian of you to make a deal to help people.
You know what,
I mean?
Mark?
Like, it doesn't seem very fascist of you. It doesn't seem very...
But it's a win-win. Isn't it easier? You know what?
They're happy, you're happy.
Here's a good one that I had just told you. We don't have to attend every argument we're invited to. And by saying, it's $1.50 plus whoever's in the trunk, stop, open the trunk, this is an inspection, you know what? Because it is private property and we have every right to do that.
Right.
Why not? Maybe they get one over on you. But guess what happens? Now you have a customer.
Correct.
Because you know what they say? Oh, that kid's in the ticket booth. No, I'm 10. That kid's in the ticket booth. Okay, fill the trunk up. Instead of going to any other drive-in theater, they'll come back to see me. And that's the way my grandfather and my uncles did it. Like, get the customer in. We're going to work with them. And in the end, our business will prosper. And maybe we don't get rich. And maybe we're not millionaires. But by to God, our business will thrive. We'll be successful. And our families will benefit. Because my aunt worked there. My cousins worked there. My dad. It was just a great family business. So that's where I learned, listen, my grandfather, he always says, don't tell anybody your business. Well, I've subscribed to that to a point, except when the entities and the governments are beyond that cooperation level, and now they're just flat out, you're paying for something that you're not getting.
Right.
Because my grandfather, here's the work model. 10 years old, we'd go to that drive-in at 9 a.m. in the morning, work till about 4 p.m. My grandfather would go home, we'd eat, he'd take a quick nap. By 6:30, 7 o'clock, we're back down in Wilkes-Barre, and we would stay till midnight or 1 o'clock when the drive-in closed. He did that every day with there was no days off, Monday through Sunday. If there was a wedding, he'd take an hour or two off, go, and then go back to his business. He was strictly devoted. That's where I get my work ethic. So when somebody says this is hard or it takes too long, God, I've been doing that all my life. So I know I'm wired a little differently. And the expectation isn't for everybody to be like that. But, we can all do a little bit better.
So there are perceptions of you being wired a little differently.
True.
Which leads me to, I know that this is like, it's a very deep question, but if we can kind of run through it rather quickly.
Open territory, whatever you need to do.
What has your interest in politics been leading up to Donald Trump? In other words, like where did you see yourself? What were you involved in prior to, let's say, 2015?
So back in 2000, George Bush is running for president. And I've been involved in politics a little bit before that, but just, I registered and voted for Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. I sat as a teenager, right? My friends would call, like, Frank, what are we doing tonight? I'd say, look, don't call me until it's 7 p.m. And I got to watch, not Walter Cronkite, although I've seen him, Dan Rather. Mm-hmm. I used to watch Dan Rather and wonder why the West Germans didn't want the missiles, the Pershing missiles in Europe, when it's East Germany and Russia that are threatening them with communism every day. So I watched everything unfold. So that's when I got interested in politics, like back in the 7-Day War in Israel. I was a kid watching on the TV, and I'm like, why aren't people wanting to defend their families, their homelands, and why is this narrative, which New World Order, that kind of stuff, that was not in the mix back then.
Right.
This
so
was
what year is
a
this
narrative.
around?
This is 1979, 1980, which when I graduated.
Okay.
So I'm starting to get immersed into this Jimmy Carter, the Peacekeeper missile, all this stuff. I'm like, why aren't we doing this? Like, because, the Soviet Union at that point, you had Brezhnev, you had Yuri Andropov, and then all of a sudden you had Gorbachev installed. So I've watched this communist route for a long time. So since 76, 79, 80, around there, I really started to look at it.
For those who don't know, when you describe a form of government such as communism, mm-hmm. right? Without saying communism, what does that, like, what are the signs of that?
Extreme regulations, cancellation of speech, cancellation of comedy, You're not allowed to comment or tell the truth, observations. So it's
There's also high oppression too.
oppression, right? Because if you speak out, now what happens?
They go after you. They
Your
go after
family
your family
loses the
Yep.
jobs, right? You're in the gulag, you know, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Archipelago Gulag. Like this stuff, this is all happened. This isn't skepticism. This is actual proven that this is history, and you can't rewrite it.
I think many people don't realize that even after World War II, I believe 50 million Russians died under Stalin.
Communism is not good for your health, right? Because Pol Pot,
He got house arrest.
with communism, you can't. It's not of, by, and for the people. To do what they want you to do, it's strict, and the consequences are death, incarceration, or extreme circumstances. So, you know, that's bad. And I've seen it, I've witnessed it, and I do not subscribe to it in any way, shape, or form.
Right. It's anti-human.
It's anti-human.
Yeah, and
it's
there is-
anti-society.
Correct. I agree with you. So would you say that that's been basically like your guiding light since the 80s, is that you see like these forms of oppression or authoritarianism
Yes.
or totalitarianism,
100%.
which is basically a government that's supposed to be run for the people, by the people, is not being represented when the people are told what to do and what to expect and what money they have to take from you.
And it's co-opted by it's human nature, and human nature is nasty and it's evil.
Right.
But even the Russians have a constitution that's similarly worded to the United States Constitution, except who interprets that Constitution? They do. So whatever they plan on deleting, in your case, like Orwell says, some people are more equal than others. Well, the law applies to you, but not to us, because we interpret the law. That's the Russian Constitution.
That's
the U.S.
scary.
Constitution. Exactly. So why do they have a Constitution that doesn't work and we have a Constitution that does? Because we're armed, because we can still speak up, although they're trying to cancel in the worst way, right?
Yeah.
Even locally in our local publications, narrative and cancellation.
We're going to get to all that. Okay, moving on. What was the thing that made you go, Trump's my guy, in like 2015? Because prior to that, the only real, I guess the only real thing that people knew about him was the TV Don. Was not like, you know, you're fired, art of the deal. Oh, he's just this business guy in New York City. Mm-hmm. What was the thing that made? I was always afraid of anybody who's a celebrity throwing their hat in the ring to be a politician, because I lived in LA and I was like, none of you people should be.
Right. None of you actors.
No,
right?
none of you
You're
actors.
all acting. You
Right.
really don't know what's going on, but you
Right.
act like you do.
But before that, I remember people loved him. People loved him.
You know, that's a great point. The Clintons loved him, Oprah Winfrey, because they're all
The people
on that
loved him.
circuit. I really didn't. My sister worked out at Bursay Jewelers in Trump Towers. Mm-hmm. And Trump would come in, and she, you know, met him a couple times. But my view of Donald Trump was, okay, he hits a couple things right, but you know what? He's not my guy. I don't know him enough to trust him. He's like out there on my radar, far out. So
And this is during the
this
primary?
is before the run-up.
Okay.
So we're watching The Apprentice. My wife watches The Apprentice. I don't watch TV. I'm watching
Smart.
right, a couple things with my wife, and I start watching The Apprentice. And you know what? Listen, Mark. I spent, for my background, 30 years of corporate management. I worked in my family businesses, and in '89, my wife says, "Well, you're getting a job, and we're getting married." Okay, good idea. I got a job. We got married. I spent 30 years with the corporation that I produced results in this Scranton market, which went from Binghamton down to Williamsport. I had a huge swath of territory.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is, tons.
Yeah.
And here's the best thing. I liken that business to an election, because every day my customers could go anywhere and buy the same product, probably for less. But I had to get out there and sell it and service it. So then when something went bad or wrong, I was there and said, okay, what do we need to do? Full refund? You need partial? What do you need? So every day they voted with their dollars for my business and my company. So I spent 30 years doing that. So when I saw Trump on The Apprentice, and I saw somebody that was measuring, listen, you can't judge a program or a person by intent. You meant to do good, but it didn't happen. Okay, well, maybe next time it will. But I saw Trump, he's looking at the people, he's looking at the teams, and he's saying, well, you did a great job, or, you know, you didn't put your effort into it, you didn't use all the contacts you had, you're fired. I was like, hey, this guy is demanding accountability. And even though it's Hollywood and acting and all that, you know, certain people didn't, you could just tell, they wanted the title, which, you know, in local government, give me the title, make me the mayor or the chair.
I want to be called the thing, but I don't want to do the thing.
You're not going to perform for us.
Right.
So I saw Trump doing that, and I'm watching it with my wife, and then they have the theme song, money, 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 right? And I'm like, this guy's okay. So to answer your question, fast forward 2015, here comes Trump down the escalator. Yeah, nice. Listen, married to an extremely bright, successful, multi-language, multicultural woman. Phenomenal. But Trump's not my guy. Ted Cruz is my guy.
Okay.
Ted Cruz, he's eloquent. When he deliberates and he explains, I'm like, Ted Cruz is the guy. So, you know, a lot of my friends were never Trumpers. And I'm with them. Not a never Trumper, but not with Trump. But there were people that were never Trumpers. Fast forward to the primary. 60,000 Pennsylvania Democrats switched to Republican. I've been trying to switch people Republican my entire life. Entire life. When 60,000 Democrats switched to Republican, you know what I said? Trump's the guy in an instant. Because I knew that they see something, and if that's the road they're going to go down, I'm going with them. Because I'm not going to try to convince the entire state of Pennsylvania.
I don't think you're a follower, but in that moment, what did you see to be like, oh, like what's the epiphany in that moment? Because it can't be the herd.
Trump's message was solid. I just liked my guy. Well, if the grassroots is saying, you know, and I'm not even sure any of these people paid any attention to Ted Cruz, but if they're paying attention to Donald Trump and he's their guy, then guess what? I looked at because I heard what Trump was saying versus Ted Cruz and whoever else was in there at that time. I'm like, I can go with Trump just as easily. Let's do it. So that's what happened. 60,000. I'm not going to fight 60,000 new registrations from Democrat to Republican. They're seeing something that, you know, maybe I was a purist. Maybe I was thinking these conservative principles, because Donald Trump is not the most conservative person then. He pretty much is now. But then he wasn't. He was somewhat of an unknown quantity. That's why I hedged my bet. But when I saw that, I'm like, I'm going. So my friends are like, well, you're not going for Cruz. I said, look, we can, but that road is going to be so difficult, and Trump he's got a solid message. Let's give him a chance. And Mark, from my days from the drive-in, you know what I said? Let's give the guys a chance. Let's work with them. And that's exactly how that changed. And sooner or later, my never Trumper friends came along. They're like, okay, yeah, he's good. We'll go with them. So it's crazy, but and still to this day, Trump is not the most conservative. There's a lot of things and spending. There's a lot of things that I can do better, Mark. Probably you could. But he's the guy in the arena. You know what I mean? There's common sense things that you can look at and say, no, I'm not doing that. And Trump does. But nobody's perfect. The last perfect guy that came, Jesus Christ, they put him on the cross. Yeah. And they released the criminals. So society sucks. People, right? No, there's no, and we're no different. Nothing's changed.
I agree with
from
you.
the Bible, from when Jesus walked till now. We think we're smarter. Yeah, okay. We have the same pitfalls.
So you had, did you expect him to win?
Did I? You know, that, yes and no. I mean, Hillary was big. She's from Scranton. She's from the area, supposedly, which we never benefited one iota from Biden, from Barack, from Hillary. What do we have? Nothing. This area is left behind by those guys. I mean, just no benefit. But did I think Trump could win? I knew it was going to be extremely close. And guess what? It was. So and I was up at the Abington Ramada watching the returns come in. And I left at about 1:30, 2 o'clock.
2015, right?
2015, 2016. So when I got home about 3 a.m., that's when they called the election. So I actually missed the entire meltdown and everybody crying. But I stayed
with the glass
there
ceiling at the Javits Center?
Yeah. So you know what? It was great. Did I think he could win? Yes. Did I think he was going to win? Extremely close. So, yeah.
Do you remember the tone and the timbre and some of the things that the other side was saying after he won? What were they saying about that election after he won?
Stolen. Vote counts were illegitimate.
That Trump and his team did this.
Yes. The Trump electors were illegitimate. Remember, we had, and here's the best one. This is how Facebook and this Google and social media has censored us to the point that you can't get the word out. Truth or lie, it doesn't matter. You can't get the word out because the Democrats were trying to run Republican delegates that would go to the convention and vote against Donald Trump. And Lou Barletta and Tom Marino came to the headquarters in Clark Summit, and they gave us the list of the endorsed candidates and delegates. So I'm there, I take the video, and I share this video on Facebook saying, okay, here's how the people in Pennsylvania, here's how we know who the delegates are, and here's how we pick them, and here's how we vote for them. Mark, 1.2 million hits on the video that I shared on Facebook. Boom, I used to have 5,000 friends. I'm down to about 600 because they throttle you. They deplatform me twice. Same thing with Twitter.
We'll get to there.
So 1.2 million hits. So you could get, and listen, so you go to see a movie. Does that mean everything you see in that movie you're going to live out? No. Same thing with a video that we post on Facebook or Twitter. It's a video. You take from it what you want, and if you totally disagree with it, you say, what a bunch of goofs. And you move on. Can't do that now. You are censored and throttled. You can't get the word out. So we are, whether we want to believe it or not, we're canceled, we're throttled, we're heading towards this socialist, communist plethora.
But they were saying...
Yes, they were saying
So they were saying...
Not only did they say
after his election, before his inauguration, and after his inauguration, what were they saying?
He's illegitimate. The election was stolen. We're not going to certify the results. Everything that they said about Trump, or that, I'm not going to say that was stated about them, but that was their rhetoric. We do not believe this election. We're not going to honor this election. We're not going to stand by it. And that was from Chuck Schumer, Hillary Clinton. This was the litany of all the leaders of that party.
So now you have a guy that you voted for, that you believed in, and now you have basically half of the political machine in this country, minus independents and not non-affiliated, telling you that this guy is a liar. That this guy is a guy that like stole an election. And as conservatives, and how does that feel? Like how does that? Because they do it every year, but not to this degree.
Well, this is when it started, and this is where the dividing line was drawn. Now you see, okay, wait a minute. Everything up to this point was kind of like parody, but now no way. We're not listening to that side because they are whipping up and making up these false allegations and this false narrative. When before, if someone lost, okay, Bush versus Gore. Okay, that was close.
That was weird. That was weird.
But here's the best thing.
That was a weird election.
Now, Mark, I remember this, right? So you're there for days, and guess who comes out to say, the election's over, we settle for the results? Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell when he was down in Florida. I saw that and I'm like, hey, that's, great. Okay, this debacle is over. 20 minutes later, here comes the DNC and Al Gore. It's not over, and we contest this election. Now, wait a minute. Here's Ed Rendell, Pennsylvania governor, Democrat, seeing the results, going by the statute, election law, and saying, it's done, it's over. That's pretty much in 92 when we saw, okay, these guys are going to try to do anything.
2000.
When was that? 2002.
2000. Gore,
2000,
Gore and Hammer 2000.
Bush versus Gore.
Yeah.
So fast forward to answer
Hanging
your question.
chads.
Now, right, hanging chads. Now, their mechanism, their narrative is much more refined, and that national media jumped right on it because they already had this plan. It was the plan B. Now, not that Hillary ever expected to lose, but it happened. So what happened immediately? They all started contesting in 2016.
Okay.
2016.
Insofar as I believe on the day in Congress when they were to certify the elections, many Democrats stood up and did not want to certify the elections.
Exactly.
So there's a history of them doing this year over year.
Yes.
Okay.
Nothing new under the sun.
I want them. So I think we have a good baseline of like what those 4 years were of his presidency, right? And I don't want to get into COVID. I don't want to get into any of the other bullshit that happened those 4 years, whether it's the pee-pee tape or any of that. I think the important thing is to move to the day that I think is the most, in my opinion, one of the most misunderstood days in American history. And you were a part of that, and you sacrificed for that. So, and I'm talking about January 6th. In the lead up to January 6th, there was a bunch of rallies going on. There was, I think it was very, the election fraud stuff and what that meant and whether or not it was a free and fair election, I think that stuff at the time was very, people who didn't know. I think today there's a better understanding of what that all meant to allow the process to go through. So they decide to have a rally down in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. Now this is probably the tail end of election to inauguration, right? I believe it was 14 days.
Right.
14 days. So when there was announced that there was going to be a rally in Washington, D.C., I believe at the Ellipse. That's at least one of them. What was your understanding of going down to Washington, D.C., to the heart of the federal government to see what could be the continuing or outgoing president based on what happened that day?
This is my understanding. I wasn't going. Whatever was going to happen.
End of interview.
I wasn't going.
Could have saved yourself a lot of problems, Frank.
Yeah, because, you know what, as I looked at it, okay, whatever it is, it's going to go. I had other things to do. But as the crescendo of the media kept pounding and beating, I'm like, now, wait a minute. These guys are out of control. That narrative is not a true and correct narrative. So I think I have to go down and show that, okay, I'm not buying the media narrative, and we the people are going to go down and say, this is not the truth. Here's what we're looking at. Now, when especially 50 states, not 57, in America, Pennsylvania is where Supreme Court Justice Alito told Secretary of State Catherine Boockvar in a ruling, don't mix the votes. Don't count those votes that came in late, unsigned. He didn't rule what to do with them. He just said, don't count them. Don't add
put
them
them in the total
Don't
yet.
put them in the total yet. Right?
A sitting Supreme Court judge says
Court
this.
Justice of these United States that sat with Ginsburg, okay? Came out of the same class. They're supposed to be equally respected. So he makes the ruling, don't. Catherine Boockvar does. Okay. Now, Pennsylvania, out of 50 states. We are the state, through Justice Alito, who has the right to go down and contest the certification of the election because the ruling from the Supreme Court justice says don't count these, and Catherine Bookvar does. That's the straw that broke this camel's back. I'm like, oh, gee. Now something has to be done.
Well, because what does that mean?
Because that means now, you in election law and statute, you just went against the highest court in the land. So now what? Now we're just going to let this go? Mark.
Yeah.
Me and the people that went down weren't going to let it go. Now, what was supposed to happen that day?
What was your intentions? Because I want to work my way through, but what did you think? If I go to a concert, I have a rough idea of here's what's going to happen at the concert.
Here's how simple it should have been, because, and these are good guys, Congressman Dan Muser, Fred Keller, Scott Perry. They said, come down and contest. Pennsylvanians, come down on January 6th and contest. Like I said, I wasn't going. My wife and my daughter begged me, Dad, Frank, don't go. I said, don't worry about it. This is America. It's not illegal to take a bus ride. It's not illegal to go down to Washington, D.C., the capital of these United States, under the United States Constitution, and say, hey, listen, we have a problem. The Supreme Court justice ruling was not taken care of. Catherine Bookvar did something that's extracurricular for her office. You can't do that. That's the point. So what did we think was going to happen? We thought when it came to hearing the contestations of the other states, that when it came to Pennsylvania would say, our congressional delegation would say, okay, hang on, we got a problem here with Pennsylvania. So if the votes that were added are backed out, we could certify, and that's as simple as it was. The other 49 states, they have their issues. Our issue was, let's certify. It may not have changed the election, Mark. I doubt it would have. But it certainly would have proven the point that, look, you can't change election statute, and you can't do whatever you want because you're a Democrat in office. These are the statutes. This is the ruling. Should have never been done. So that's as simple as what our expectations were.
So contest the election means what?
Contest the election.
What does that look like physically?
So in that
a group of citizens. What is that like?
No.
What does it look like?
This was our elected officials. This would have been the congressional delegation from Pennsylvania that said, hey, here's our numbers. It was 560,000, not 625,000.
Okay.
Those are the numbers that Pennsylvania submits for the certification of this election. Like I said, it may not have changed the outcome of the election, but at least Pennsylvania's numbers would have been right. The election statute. We didn't get there because something happened. And I'll tell you this. Other rallies I've been to down there where there was millions of people, they had Job Johnnies, they had a place for you to go, they had vendors where you can eat. On January 6th, specifically to punish those people that went down there, they had no portable bathrooms, no Job Johnnies. And if you're familiar with the Capitol, at the one end, there's a stone building that houses some lavatories, and that's it. The lines to get into those lavatories were half a mile long. I said to myself, look, this is already going sideways. This is not a friendly atmosphere.
Let's get there. So why organize the buses? So I asked Democrats. I said, they gave me a couple of questions, like what would you ask Frank if you could ask Frank? One of them was, why organize the buses and coordinate the trip down there for 200 people?
Because that's all I was willing to take. Listen, here's how it started. Remember, I'm not going.
Yeah.
They could do this on their own. The election's over, right? And then Catherine Bookvar does her move, and I'm like, that's not standing. I'm going to go down there and say, this cannot stand. So it started out with a couple guys asking me, you going down? I said, yeah, I'll take my truck. A couple more people said, because I got a Chevy Silverado 4-door. and I could fit some people in, 6 people. So all of a sudden, people started calling. I'm like, geez, there's too many. Want to start a caravan? All of a sudden, there's 60 people. Now, because I had gone down before on buses, about 60 people is what you need for a bus. So I called the bus company that I had used before, and I called the guy up. His name was Robert. I said, Robert, how about January 6th, the bus down to Washington, D.C.? He says, yeah, okay, $55 a person. I said, well, I know where we'll leave from the Pittston parking lot. He's familiar with it. And I said, okay, well, I'll let you know. So I start doing this on Facebook. You know, part of what the narrative from the deep state was, oh, we have to take down Parler because that's how this whole rally was organized. It was organized on Parler. And they proceeded to take down that
I remember when they took that
platform,
down. I remember
right?
that, yeah.
More deplatforming. They're gone. That's not how I organized. I organized on Facebook. And remember, I got 5,000 friends.
Yeah.
So the first bus cost $2,000, $55 times 60 people, whatever it is, right? So the requests keep coming in. And this is like 2 or 3 days before the rally's going to go down. I fill up a second bus. So now I'm on the hook for $4,000, $2,000 a bus. Okay. Calls keep coming in. I'm up to 3 buses. That's $6,000.
Wow.
Calls keep coming in. And I'm getting calls from Binghamton, Williamsport. I'm getting calls from all over because I will tell you this, Mark. And you're coming as a Renaissance man, you're finding this out.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big community.
Yeah.
And we all get along. We're very trusting.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot of love.
A lot of love.
Love.
If we say we're going to do something, we do it. If we say we're going to pay, we pay. Nobody's looking to freeload.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, I have 4 buses, and the phone's still ringing off the hook. And I look at it, and it's $8,000 that I'm going to owe. And I said, whoa. I said, now, what if these people don't show up?
Yeah.
What if something goes sideways? What if there's a cancellation? I said, that's it. No more. And people are calling, please get another bus. I said, so realistically, I could have kept going. It might have been 6. It might have been 10. That's it. I'm done. I'm done. So we have 4 buses. Now, this was COVID, so we had spacing. I didn't throw 65 people on a bus. We put 50, a little bit of space for the COVID debacle. So when we hit...
I'm not familiar with COVID. What was that? Was that something?
Right. That's the one that Kamala cast the deciding vote for the big bailout. But anyway, we've got the 4 buses now. It's capped. We're getting ready to go. So I tell everybody, meet at 7 a.m. down in, and here's where the shenanigans started. I meet 7 a.m. down in Pittston, we'll take off. All of a sudden, Trump's going to be speaking at 9 a.m. Trump's going to be the first speaker. So I have to call everybody and say, hey, now the buses are rolling out at 5 a.m.
Right.
So you know what? Now this is where I say things started going sideways because it was a Stop the Steal rally.
Well, it turned into so like your intention to go down was to be as the electors to say, hey, this was not right. But then then you get like you're going to see Pearl Jam, but now they're adding like Pink Floyd, and now they're adding
all of a sudden right.
So is that am I saying that right?
Yes.
Where they're starting to add shit to it?
Because now you have all these different venues, and you know my friend from Texas, Stephen Williford, he's the guy that shot the shooter down in Texas when he went into the church.
Oh, that's your friend?
Stephen Williford, yes.
Ask him if he wants to do a podcast.
You know what? Yeah, it would be great.
We'll zoom him in.
So here's the thing. Stephen Williford, now, because they've secured permits, and this is where the park police, the Capitol Police, and that's why Sutherland resigned. He was the chief of Capitol Police, because he knew that the narrative they're giving us is not the truth. We had secured permits to be there to assemble outside the Capitol. Peacefully.
Right, let's get there.
Yeah.
We're moving toward that.
We had all different people, my friends Sean Moon and Stephen Williford and man, Mark, there were so many. This was going to be like nonstop speakers outside the Capitol on a platform having a rally, a peaceful, like we've done all the time. Peaceful rally.
For 5 years. Peaceful rallies for 5 years.
Since 2016.
Yeah.
So guess what? We go there, and here's the best part. Trump didn't start speaking at the Ellipse until 11 o'clock, 11:30.
So hold on. So on your way, like a few days before or the day of, you're starting to realize that there's more things being added to this schedule down there, right?
Yep.
So you go down, and what was there an itinerary? Was there, like, what was the expectation? Like, we'd see Trump speak. Is there a Stop the Steal speaker? Is there some sort of
All of that.
medical freedom thing? Or
All
what?
of that.
All of that was down there, scheduled.
So we have, the ellipse was supposed to happen early, and then everybody was supposed to go, that you wanted to go to the Capitol for the additional speakers. So Trump was going to speak at the ellipse, Rudy Giuliani, a couple speakers down there, which that agenda was very fluid. Like I said, he was supposed to start at 8, then 9, then 11. Then, so I just told my people, get to the bus stop at 6 a.m., we're rolling out. If we're a little late for Trump, that's fine. So that's what we do. We board the buses, and we roll to Washington. Uneventful. We go there, everybody gets off.
What's the mood
Everything's
like
good.
on the buses?
Oh, joyous. Like, hey, look, we're down in Washington. You know, it was just a lot of camaraderie. It's like, hey, you know, this is, let's see what happens. So there was no anger. There was no targeting. There was no squads put together, like, say, okay, we're going to go left, you're going to go right, and no, this was just, Mark, I had people in jazzies and walkers, older people. I'm like, God love you guys. What, you know, how are you going to make it? Don't worry, Frank, we'll make it. I'm like,
but never in that was there any coordination talk of anything along the lines of, like,
no
if
Proud
this doesn't
Boys,
go our way.
No, well, in the end, if we did say that, what would happen? What are we going to do? We're a bunch. I'm not a spring chicken. Younger than I am.
I'm probably more of a cow.
What am I? Well, I pass no judgment here, but you know, what am I? Here's the best thing. I'm up in the Capitol steps. Let's
not get there yet. Let's not get there yet.
There's all old guys up in there going, yeah, we're ready. And I'm laughing. I say, well, you're ready. Where are you going?
Right.
So, yes, it was not supposed to be what ended up being. No way. But that's where the narrative, that's where they were able to manipulate this crowd into what it was.
So the buses park. Everyone's ready for a rally.
Rolls out.
Everyone gets off. Did you have any concern? Like, I believe in energy, right? I believe, like, when you walk into a place or a room, your body subconsciously tells you something ain't right, or let's call it spiritual intuition, whatever you want to call it. When you get off the bus, was there a moment of time where
Absolutely.
Okay, tell me about that.
You know why? Number one, there were no portable bathrooms. And everybody on that bus is like, where's the bathrooms? I'm like, these guys, they're punishing us. The first thing I noticed, because when there was rallies, park police always put, you know, you're expecting 1 million, 2 million people prior, all the time. They had these. This time, there was none. And guess who else was absent? Usually when you went within a block or two, here's Antifa or BLM or somebody else busting your ass.
Counter-protesting against you.
None. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. There's no latrines and there's no resistance. I'm like, okay, keep your eyes open. Something. It's nice that nobody's there to, because you know what?
Start crap at you guys.
They start throwing stuff at you, water bottles, come out, just start cursing at you.
Yeah.
Things that we don't do.
Yeah.
Things that they do. That's their modus operandi. So that's not evident. And we're heading towards the ellipse, and Trump isn't there, and it's a big crowd, and Trump is supposed to be speaking, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Yeah, and it's January 6th. It's not the warmest day on record.
No.
It's pretty cool. There's a stiff breeze. So the story turns that Teddy Daniels, who ran for Congress, knows the area. So about 5 of us break off, and we start walking towards the Capitol. And we're walking up.
So your starting point was basically by the ellipse, by the Washington Monument.
We went right to the ellipse. We're waiting for Trump. He's not there. Rudy's down there. It's windy. We can't hear them. All right, we're gonna take a walk. Maybe we'll hear Trump. Maybe we won't. That was about 10-ish.
Now, why are you walking down to the Capitol? What do you expect down there?
Because Teddy Daniels was gonna show us the RNC. He's gonna show us where they went for lunch, a couple things like that. So we break off and head with Teddy. So we get up to the Capitol about 11 a.m. and guess what? Nobody's there. There's no police tape. There's no lines. There's no police saying, stop, this is closed. And we're just sitting there on the park bench and Trump starts speaking. Okay, so we're trying to listen to
Were
him.
you watching him on the cell phones?
We're trying on the cell phone. But I guess there's so many people down there, you couldn't.
Service is terrible.
Service was terrible. So you know what? We got up and Teddy goes, I'll show you where the RNC is. We'll have lunch next door to the RNC. So we take a walk. And we're just walking leisurely, a couple of us. And we're up on the steps of the RNC. And we take a couple pictures, which I'll show you I have. And right next door is a little sandwich place. So we go over, we get some drinks, we get some sandwiches. We're sitting outside the sandwich place. 20 cop cars come flying up the street. People, dogs, this place is going crazy. And they said, okay, you got to move. 2-block perimeter. Get going, get going. Well, that was the pipe bomb they found outside the RNC.
Oh, my God.
Mark, we're standing right there.
How close were you?
Right on the steps. Here's the bush with the
fake
bomb? Pipe bomb. Right, we're right there. We're right there.
Most people don't know that day there was a pipe bomb at the DNC and the RNC,
and
they still haven't found who did it.
Well, listen. Yeah.
Let's not speculate.
Hard to say,
they still haven't
right?
found
They have all
who.
the facial recognition. They're still arresting January 6ers, but they couldn't find those guys. Okay.
Yeah.
And when people walked across the street and they knew the pipe bombs were there was no like, hey, don't walk there. Get out of there. So I'm this whole day.
Weird.
I'll tell you some things further on that you're going to be like, what's
Weird.
up with that? So anyway, they shoo us out. Get going, dogs. There's bomb squads.
And this is
There's
what, like
trucks pulling in.
11:30?
Well, it's about 11:30, quarter to 12, right? So we're
Trump's still speaking.
We didn't know what this was. We're like, what? Something big is going on there. So they got us out of there. Trump is, I don't know if he's speaking or not because we're out of that realm. We're totally removed now. We're gone.
And you have terrible service to watch it.
Almost no service.
Yeah.
So, we're walking around the corner because there's another place Teddy knew that was a little Chinese restaurant or something because we couldn't get all of our stuff there because they had shooed us out of there. So we went in there, continued our lunch. We saw Lauren Boebert drive in with her little convertible. A couple other people that Teddy knew. Hey, there goes, oh yeah, I had lunch with her. So we're talking about all this stuff, and we have no idea about the shit storm that's about to go down.
And what time is this?
That's about 12:30, 1 o'clock. It's a couple blocks away. We have nowhere to go. So we're just walking around, just like kind of sightseeing, looking at the old buildings and things like that. So we're up on the corner. Everybody had just finished their lunch from the Chinese restaurant. We're sitting on the corner, and there's still cop cars flying around, sirens blaring, right? It's about 1:20, and we hear boom, boom. And Teddy, who's a combat veteran, he's a police veteran. He's like, whoa. Did you hear that? I said, yeah. He goes, that's over at the Capitol. Let's go see what's going on. I'm like, yeah, okay.
So you weren't over there at the time?
No, we're blocks away.
Was there anything scheduled at any time for you guys to go to the Capitol
yes. The speakers were supposed to start at noon, which they didn't because it was Trump and the ellipse and things went sideways. There were supposed to be Stop the Steal rallies the whole day. If you're in production and you have a schedule, well, this day was gone because it was a shit show. It went totally sideways. Nothing was going according to plan. Nothing was on time. So basically, at this point, you know what? I'm saying, all right, listen, if nothing's going to go down, let's go have a drink somewhere, or if this is it, it's over, let's get back on the bus. Oh, okay, but let's go to the Capitol and see what's going on. So we walk to the Capitol.
Now, is this the
And-
side where where the inauguration was setting up?
No, we're on the other side. The
back
hang
side.
on, you know what? The back side, the Supreme Court side, and then the front side. So
the front side has the inauguration stuff.
yes,
Okay.
the scaffolding.
Scaffolding,
And
yeah.
that's where the first flash bombs went off. So you're right. So we come walking down the street into that front, and now we could see there was a yellow line of tape across, and we could see all these skinny guys in black ninja type attire climbing scaffolds, climbing the walls, and this place is like, they're like ants, somewhat assaulting. And Teddy's going, he said, this is strange. Look at what's going on here. This is, and Constitution Avenue runs up, if you're facing the Capitol building, Constitution Avenue runs up on the left, and then you go straight up and the Supreme Court is behind the Capitol. So Teddy goes, the cops are all lined up over here. Let's go over here and see what they're up to, because he's an ex-policeman. So we go over, we cross the street, we cross Constitution Avenue, and we come up alongside.
So you're not even on
the
Capitol
police
grounds
line.
yet, are you?
No.
Okay.
In a minute, we will be. So we get there, and the bike racks are set up, and there's rows of cops standing right there. Now, keep in mind, the Capitol has people. I don't know who they are. They weren't wearing MAGA hats. They're all in black, skinny, and they're kind of doing things. And this is where the flash bombs went off. Now we're there. We didn't hear any extra flash bombs. We could smell a little bit of
It's like sulfur or something?
the pepper
Gunpowder,
spray.
yeah.
The pepper spray.
Oh, the pepper spray's
Pepper
hitting you.
spray.
Okay.
They're spraying. But yet this is where I know things are really going wrong, because nowhere is the assembly set up for people to speak. The stage, which they had permits for, the Capitol Police and the Park Police knew, because they issued the permits, and the media does not talk about this.
Does anyone have the
were
permits?
issued. I bet you somebody does. The permits were issued, like, okay, stop the steal. Your rally's going to be here. Your other rally's going to be here. So there was supposed to be multiple rallies right there. That's what it was. You go to Washington to join a rally and to redress your government. So the cops are standing there. Me and Teddy are standing behind the cops. There's not a big crowd. We look down the street. Trump was done speaking. You could see the crowd from the ellipse coming up the street, but they're not there. They're a good 15 minutes away. You could see the huge crowd coming, but this Trump crowd is not the crowd that's assaulting the building. These are other people. And Teddy and I are standing there, and Teddy's talking to the cops, and he said, Frank, he said, this is strange. He said, there's no radio chatter. There's no call for assistance. There's no National Guard. There's nobody saying we gotta secure the building. Yet these guys are crawling around all like ants. And I have it on video. And we stayed there for about 10, 15 minutes just watching, because we're just observing. We're walking around. There's no rallies. What else are we going to do? And
Also, something strange is happening.
it's strange. Like I
Yeah.
said, there's no Antifa.
People tend to wait and watch strange.
There's no Antifa coming after us, which there usually is.
Okay.
They're usually in an alley coming out after you, yelling, calling you racist, bigoted, whatever the narrative script is for them. That's what they do. There was nobody doing that. So we could see the crowd coming up from the ellipse, and they're getting closer, but they're not there yet. And there's a couple people now starting to filter in. It's about 15, 20 minutes elapsed. There's people starting to fill in on the grounds right before the scaffolding and all those people were climbing up. So Teddy says, it looks like it's getting a little hot here. Let's go around the back. I said, yeah, whatever, because, things aren't going on. I'm getting kind of bored because listen, civil unrest, whatever. It's not my bag. I'm not going to do these kind of things. Whatever
Yeah.
they're doing,
Yeah.
they're doing. But they were being obnoxious and troublemaking, which we were not there to do. We're there to redress the government. So me and Teddy and a couple other guys, we walk around the back of the Capitol. And as we're walking around, there's police. Nobody's saying, stop, can't go here. This area is off limits. This area is closed. You don't belong here. Nothing. But here's the police. So did I think that was strange?
Now, is this the Capitol grounds now?
Capitol grounds now. We're actually walking on it. I didn't think anything of it because, look, this is the Capitol. It's open for tourism. You can go there like, okay, this to me is just like kind of like another day. And we're supposed to be having rallies. So we're going to walk around the back. Maybe there's a rally in the back in front of the Supreme Court, which there was a bunch of people in front of the Supreme Court, but there's no rally. It's just people kind of walking around because there was nothing going on. So here's the best. As we walk around the back of the Capitol, as I said, we pass by police. Nobody's saying stop. There's no
how
bike
close
wraps.
are you walking
There's
by
no yellow
police?
tape. Right, from me to you, right there.
Good day, officer. How you doing?
Yeah, and that's exactly what Teddy said to them, because he was one of them. He respects them. Hey, how's everything going? Oh, good. So there was interaction. There was no stop. There was no don't proceed. There was no, hey, look, guys, it's getting a little hot here. You should go the other way. None of that. Absolutely none. Mike, I don't have a speeding ticket. I don't have citations. I pay my taxes. I have no record. So that's because I know, right? If something's going down or something's not right, yeah, you probably don't want to be here. So the crowd is starting to come up from the ellipse, starting to get a little more crowded. And we're walking. I said, Teddy, hang on. I'm just going to go get some pictures at the top of the steps. And Teddy goes, Frank. I said, Teddy, just give me a minute. I'll be right down. That's where I went wrong.
How many people are on the steps when you were going to go do that?
By this time, there might have been...
Like you see it, do you see it growing? The number of people?
No, because there was about 100, 150. But remember, the crowd isn't there from the ellipse yet. So when I go up there, the crowd isn't growing yet. Once I get up there and take the pictures, now that crowd from the ellipse came, now the place is filled with people. Peaceful. No, there's no fighting. There's no...
What type of people were up on... What type of people were those 150? Were a lot of them who left the ellipse?
MAGA hats, MAGA shirts, MAGA flags. I did, and I cooperated. And let's put a full stop period right here. The narrative is that I lied. I said I didn't go in the Capitol. That's the truth. Because I lied. I did go in the Capitol. But when we're going home on the bus, and I see CNN calling, Newswatch 16, WNEP, I'm like, oh shit, man. This was because remember, I'm in the back of the Capitol. I'm not in the front where they were busting out windows and doing that kind of stuff. I'm like, whoa, this is going crazy. And I called my wife and she said, Frank, you better not have been in that Capitol. You see what's happening? I'm like, oh, well, this thing is bigger than I thought it was, even though I witnessed it. So when Mark Hiller and whoever else, Peggy Lee, which I apologize to, when they asked, did you go in the Capitol? I couldn't say yes. That's self-incrimination. I said, nope, we didn't go in the Capitol.
All right, so let me...
So when the FBI asked, of course, I went in. So did I tell the press one thing and then fully cooperate with the FBI? Yeah. So when people say, oh, you lied, I don't know anybody that day that would have said, hey, yeah, I went in there.
Well, it was
big.
So let me ask you. You're on the backside. I'm assuming you're at the top of the steps.
Top of the steps.
Trying to get, what, like a 360 or a 180 or
pictures,
just...
Yep, that's it. Be part of history.
And what are the people up there, do those seem like people that you're used to when you go to events?
Absolutely.
Okay, nobody's... What are they doing? What are they talking about?
No black clothes ninja, nobody...
no face coverings.
No, well, you know what? It was COVID. So a couple of guys had COVID. But this is where I meet. There's a guy up there. He's an Oriental gentleman. He's got to be 75. There's another guy, looks Filipino. He's an old guy. That's when I'm laughing. They said, well, we're ready. I'm like, we're ready for what? Where are you guys going? So there's a couple of guys. If you've ever seen, there's 3 sets of doors. And these are the old, big, huge, humongous wooden doors from like a fortress and a castle. And they're trying to go heave, heave. And guess what? Those doors aren't moving. So I'm up there laughing. I'm like, what are these guys doing? So the crowd is starting to build around me.
But at that moment, what do you think they're doing? At that moment, what do you think their intention is? Because in the movies I've seen, heave means
but you're not
something.
True. But you know what? I went to school for engineering. I looked at the structure of the walls and the structure of the doors.
You thought like
I'm like this. It's amusing. There's no way.
So you thought idiots are doing stupid shit,
Yeah, you know what?
and they're going to get in trouble for it.
Well, no, they're not going to get in trouble because nothing's going to happen. Because they're not. Look, they don't have picks and they're not damaging anything. They're just pushing up against the door
With their bodies?
With their bodies.
Okay.
You're not going to open these doors. You're not going anywhere.
I've done that at a middle school.
Whoever.
Yeah.
What, did the doors open?
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's stupidity. But, it's in the heat of the moment. Everyone's done that. The lie is that for people to say, "Oh, I wouldn't have lied," or "Oh, I wouldn't have got caught up in the heat of the moment." You're human.
Yeah.
You're part of society. You will do it.
Yeah.
You've been mob psychology before.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm about to turn around and go because, like I said, I got my pictures. I'm just about done. And all of a sudden I hear click. And guess what happens?
The doors open.
Poof! Not just the doors I was at, 3 sets of doors open, and the crowd floods in. So
what did you think in that moment would click?
when it clicked,
Like
I'm
when you're there
"Oh."
in that moment and you hear click and then you see doors open from these guys hitting it with their bodies, but one body,
You know what I thought?
one door does not open 3.
Right.
What did you think?
I thought, oh,
Honestly,
oh,
in that
Jesus.
moment.
I said, "Oh Jesus, are we gonna miss this historic moment?" Because I could I have turned around and forced my way out through
What's
those
this
people?
Are you going to witness this historic moment? What does that
Going
mean?
in the Capitol? They let us in
For what?
But
What is this historic moment?
I'm going for a walk in the Capitol.
Uh-huh.
Now, other people, they went.
I'm talking
to-
specifically about you.
Yeah, well, they went to the Senate chambers. They went to wherever they went. Me, I'm going in. I'm going to take a walk around, see what's going on. And the video I have starts when they're going heave at the door. I have it here, right? And then when the doors open, and the video I have has me going in and throngs of people pushing past me, and I am not going with the crowd. I'm just taking a look around, walking through the Capitol on this momentous day. And probably in the end, if there was a men's room, I probably would have used the men's room because remember, there was none around, right? I would have. But here's where the FBI and the government are like, well, we got you for.
Well, can we get to
parading."
that? Can
Yeah.
we get to that? So when those doors opened and you were going to go inside, do you think you were going into sightsee? Do you think you were going into do you think that they were opened on purpose? Like from the other side? Not by people who were trying to get in, but by people. Like, what did you think? Like the Capitol was finally like, all right, let's let these people in, see them witness whatever this is going to be.
I didn't
Because
know.
at that time, Ted Cruz, who's your former boy, was trying to get, if I'm not mistaken, a motion on the floor to review. They had 10 days. He wanted to give 10 days to review all of the election information because he said his concern was that 50% of the country does not believe the elections are real. And that's a really big problem
Yes.
in a constitutional republic. So we need, he said, we need to reassure that these results are legitimate. And that's what he was trying to do in there. Not overturn an election, not do anything like that, but to say, hey, let's look at these one last time with a fine-tooth comb, see if it's legit, see if there's any irregularities. If there is not, then there is not. If there is, right? Did you think you were going to go in and see that procedure happen, or were you like, I kind of want to see what the top of the staircase looks like?
Well, I might have, but here's what I thought. As soon as I got past those doors, which, by the way,
Big.
there were policemen, and this came up, and my attorney, Ernie Priate, pointed this out. He said, look, there's a policeman at each side of the door. They didn't say, stop, don't enter, go back, this is restricted, again, right? They just stood there. and let the people in.
Anybody say anything to them on their way
nope.
in?
No, a couple of guys stopped and chatted with them.
And they were chatting?
From what it looks like, the crowd wasn't angry, and when it busted through, it wasn't with violent force. They opened the doors. We pretty much walk in, maybe at a fast pace, but there was no running. There was no big push. It was like
it's not like
entry.
It's not like
letting us in.
It's not like teeners running into a Taylor Swift
like
concert.
Going to a concert.
Yeah.
You go through security, and they open the door, and you're going in. No big deal. But now, when I go past those doors, and the throngs are rushing past me, you know what I figured? Okay, they will probably lock this whole Capitol down, and then we'll be stuck in here for weeks till they arrest and process everybody. So, yeah, I'm going to start making my way out. That's within 2 minutes of me going in.
So wait, so at some point in that 120 seconds where you're like, oh, this seems like I shouldn't be doing this?
Yeah, probably got to get out of here pretty quick, because I don't know what's going on. I don't know if we're supposed to be in here, although they open the doors, then they let us in. Yeah, I'm probably gonna make my way out.
Yeah.
Which I did. The doors on the leftmost were the ones I went into. All the way down at the end of the hall is the Senate chambers, and I could look out, and I saw that it was Constitution Avenue right there. So I said, okay, if I'm here and Constitution Avenue is there, then I go down this, because the Senate chambers were right there. If I wanted to be a hero or cause trouble, I could have went in and went on Pelosi's desk. I mean, they were right there. And I looked in the window and I said, okay, Senate chambers, that's fine. I'm going the other way. So now I start making my way out down the stairs. And it was not the crowd. The crowd was not there. A couple guys were there doing the same thing. We're looking around, walking around. We're going to get out of here. So I walk down the steps, and I come to a policeman. He's sitting at an easel, a lectern. And I'm like, how do you get out of here? He didn't say anything. He goes, so there was a doorway behind him. Okay, walk through that doorway, walk down the next set of steps. I come to the main floor. Now, this is where I see and hear commotion.
What main floor? Like the first floor?
Yeah, so it's 3 floors. Where I came in is the 3rd floor. I come down to the 2nd floor, ask the cop, go through the walkway, and then I'm down on the main floor, the bottom floor.
Okay, almost like street level.
Street level.
As close to street level, yeah.
This is where I hear commotion. This is where I hear, like, some yelling, some things, and I look down
Up
there.
until that, you didn't hear any of this, witness any of this?
Because most of that crowd had gone the other way. It was me and a couple stragglers walking through upstairs. That's why I said the throng, who probably on their agenda might have been to witness what Ted Cruz was doing, go down. I wasn't going that far. I was there to go to the outside rallies, and they asked me to speak, so I was going to speak at the outside rally. So in case that was going to go on, I'm going to go see it. I'm going to go pick part of it. So the big point I make is I saw the 5 Capitol Police that were in body armor with the assault weapons, and then the shift commander, who was the skinny guy with the white shirt with the white tie, that were there when Ashley Babbitt was murdered. I saw them in the hallway, and this is probably right before she got shot, because they were on their way to somewhere. And when I looked down the hallway and I saw them, I said, okay, I'm not going that way. I'm going the other way. So I saw them. They were on their way to do whatever they were going to do. And I go the other way. I see another cop, and I say, how do you get out of here? Same thing. Didn't say anything, just points. So me, and I have them on video, 2 other guys, we walk out. We walk past another set. There's the tunnel now, because now I'm outside. I'm out of the Capitol. And if you look, there's 2 tunnels for the Capitol. And it's where the steps are and everything. So we walked out past the 2 motorcycle cops. They didn't say anything. They didn't say, stop, what's your name? You're under arrest. Nothing. We walk out. Teddy Daniels is there. I said, oh, Teddy, what's going on? He said, nothing. Let's go stand over here. So to me, going up in there and through that and all that, there was no really attacking the Capitol. There was no violence. There was nobody with spears or weapons or helmets or anything. That was in the front of the Capitol. Like I said, and before, it was just the ninja guys. But at that point, more people had come, I guess. Because what I saw in the news, the way ABC produced it, yeah, it looked pretty bad.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. From my perspective, where I was, It wasn't that way. It was a bunch of older guys and just people going through. Women. The one girl, she had the sign that said "Cry for the Children." She was the blondie. You see her. She was on the news all the time. She was a teacher in Ohio. She got fired the next day. She was right next to me, and I have her on the video. She said, "Come on, we're going to the chambers." I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll see you there." And I didn't go that way. Like I said, once I got in there, Spidey senses is like, "All right, you're in. No, you got to get out before they arrest everybody in here."
Do you remember the moment when you were in there where you were like, because I'm sure there's like excitement, adrenaline. When you get in, what was was there a moment where you're like, I probably shouldn't be here?
Yeah. And 2 minutes in.
But what was it? Was it a feeling? Was it you saw something? Was it something you heard?
You know what? It was partially, you know, it was just intuition.
So in that moment, you say to yourself, "Okay,
I got to get out."
Yeah, it's like
I got to get out.
It's like skydiving.
'Cause I wanted to go home.
Well, it's like skydiving. It's like I want to do this, and then you're out the plane, and you're like, I don't know
Right.
if I really
You're
want to do
committed.
this.
Too late.
Yeah.
You're on your way
Right.
down. But keep in mind 2 things. Maybe there was going to be a rally outside. Maybe that was still going to go down. So I'm going to go out and see what's going on. You know what I mean? It was just a simple egress into this building. And then when I was in there, I'm like, okay, well, you know, if they lock it down, you're not going home tonight. So let me get the hell out of here.
Now, did you take video while you were in there?
Yes. Every inch. 2 things. To show.
Is there video the moment you walk in to the moment you leave?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Teva requested.
What's Teva? I don't know what Teva is.
Teva is Newswatch 16. Teva
Tegna.
Tegna is the parent company, and WGN, parent company of WBRE. They both, because that was federal government evidence, because they took my videos, and they were published. So my videos are on the internet of me walking through there, because that's now not state's evidence, but government evidence, and it's available to the public.
How long is that
So
video
it's in there.
from beginning to start?
8 minutes. So when I was at the doors open, I walk in, I go to Senate
So you go outside to
chambers,
meet with everybody else.
I go down, I come outside, I turn it off. It shows the cops. Nobody spoke a word. They didn't say, you know.
So that wasn't a Facebook
you
Live or
shouldn't have
anything?
No, because I would have been Facebook Live, but whatever, either it was blocked communications or there was so many cell phones.
On the
there
network.
was no, right, Facebook was down. So that's why I went with video on my phone. And it's 8 minutes, and I show myself going down.
Did you narrate?
Somewhat.
What did you say?
Some stupid stuff. I said, I can't believe we stormed the Capitol, which you're 100% guilty once you said that. That's why I pled. I said, I can't believe we stormed the Capitol. Not much after
Do you think
that.
that's what happened, though? That you stormed the Capitol?
No, but that was the narrative at the time.
Was it exciting? I mean, it was that...
It was pretty exciting. And I do a lot of racing, motorcycle, skiing, mountain biking, so it was an adrenaline rush for sure. Absolutely.
So your experience inside there was not of violence?
No, and I didn't see any violence. I was not with the violent crowd. In fact, when the paper of record here locally showed me coming down the steps in that throng of people, I don't even remember them being that many people coming down the steps, but there were. Like when they opened those doors up top, there was a flood of people. Like I said, could I have turned around and fought my way out? Yeah, but, you know, and my wife said, she said, Frank, you had a smile on your face going in. I'm like, well, it was kind of like curiosity. If you want to know, curiosity killed the cat. I'm going to go in.
But you were under.
Let me see what happened.
But you were under every belief that whoever was inside of some sort of responsibility opened those
open the
doors on
doors.
purpose.
Yep, opened the doors because they did. They opened the doors on purpose. Walked past the police standing there.
And there was police standing right at those doors.
Yep, each side.
Was
So-
it Capitol Police? Was it
Capitol
Maryland
Police.
Police?
Capitol
Police.
Police. Capitol.
Okay. When you came out, did your mood change? Did your perception change?
No. Nope. I was out. We're out. Okay, that's...
So you're like, all right, maybe people still went
behind me.
inside, but we're good.
Yeah, we're good. That's behind me. Went into the Capitol.
They might get a few
8 minutes.
trespassing things.
No big thing. Maybe a citation, a ticket. No big thing. So we come out, and we're waiting for other people that we had. Now it's like, I think it's 3 o'clock, because I think I was in there from 2:40 to 2:48 or something, which at this point, they had evacuated the building. So the congressman and whoever else, which I didn't know, but they were out. They were gone.
So at that time, you didn't know that they were...
No, we have no idea.
And there's no reception for anybody to
No
tell anybody.
reception, right. And when I walk out, Teddy's like, where were you? I said, oh, I went for a walk. So he's like, oh, okay. He said, let's stand over here. So behind the Capitol is a grate that's got warm air. It's where their heaters are.
Yeah.
And if anybody's been there, you know where this grate is,
Yeah.
especially in the winter. So we all stood on the grate, and we're watching people come by, and everybody's, it's no big thing. It's 3:30. We're waiting for people to come.
Do you hear screaming? Do you hear flashbangs? Do you hear...
No, it's quiet now.
Because you're still on the back side of where the inauguration is.
Where the Supreme Court side
And
is.
you can't hear anything from that side?
No, we can't hear nothing. So, but here's the amazing part, and this goes to the point that it was orderly and that there was no malice. And this is odd. Okay, so there's still people up on the steps, and the Capitol Police, not a throng, one by one, about 8 to 9 of them, start walking up the steps, and there's no weapons drawn, there's no nothing. They're just going, okay, you got to leave.
Is anybody assaulting, pushing?
No, as they're going up, women, men, Capitol Police, as they're going up, the people start walking down, and then the Capitol Police closed off the steps. And all they didn't put tape up, they just stood in front, and nobody went up there. So when they cleared the place...
Were people yelling at them?
No, orderly, like, okay, we're closing up shop, you guys got to go. Because it's 3:30, 4 o'clock, the Capitol closes.
Yeah.
So, no, and that's the most amazing part, and I have this on video, and the networks, I don't believe, showed this. Because if it was this big mob and we're fighting to the end and we're busting through windows, then why would anybody ever surrender to these 8 to 10 cops that came, no body armor, just the regular blue clothes police force that came up, and they just walked up the steps sideways, and everybody came off the steps, and it was over.
Common sense would tell you that those police officers walking up those steps were not in fear of their lives.
No, absolutely not. Not from their strut, not from their presentation, and not, if they were in fear of their lives, they'd have the helmets on, the batons, the shields. None of that. They simply just walked up, and people...
Like regular uniform.
Done, yeah. Because the people on the backside of the Capitol, which was my perspective, ABC had the front of the Capitol.
Yeah.
It's going down. Okay, we don't know that. That's the front of the Capitol. The back of the Capitol, peaceful. Protest over, we're closing the building. Okay, everybody comes down. That, to me, was I was like, it's amazing, because I didn't know the perception from the rest of America as they were whipped into the frenzy from my perspective. I just thought, it's over, and look at all these people cooperating. We're going. I'm just waiting for my compadres. We're going to get back on the bus. In fact, right before I went up the steps, I said, Teddy, if things aren't going right, we're not going to have any rallies or anything. I said, we could call it. We could call everybody, get back on the bus, go have a couple beers. Like we could end it, because there's nothing going on. It didn't go down the way it's supposed to. All these rallies were supposed to happen.
You were expected to have rallies in the back.
Yes, exactly.
So it was your understanding that there was going to be rallies in the back of the U.S. Capitol on the land.
And the front and the back. There was supposed to be multiple different rallies.
And there was and was there thought of Trump coming down to the Capitol to speak?
No.
That was never a thought.
He was at the ellipse. That was it. We were going to have these consecutive rallies outside and wait for the results. Like, what's going on?
So to recap, you are at the Capitol before Trump stopped speaking. There are people already at the Capitol before Trump stopped speaking. On the front side, where the inauguration is supposed to take place, it looks like a video game of like
Ninja, whatever.
yeah, like they're climbing
these
stuff.
guys.
And you heard, I'm assuming you heard flashbangs.
Flashbangs. Now remember, at 11 a.m., me and Teddy and our couple people are in front of the Capitol at the bench. There's nobody there. When I say nobody, there's like not even one or two people walking around. There's nobody there.
Where the inauguration
Yeah.
scaffolding is.
Inauguration scaffolding's here. We're on the bench right here, and we're just hanging out like. And that's when Teddy said, "Let's go for a walk, 2 or 3 blocks away. That's where the RNC is, and that's when we leave." So
That's where you almost. That's where you have to
11:30?
escape from a bomb.
Right. It was a very eventful day.
Yeah. Needless to say.
So and there was nobody anywhere. So it was not like this. Wasn't like as portrayed.
How did you feel walking out? What was the environment and energy around you at that time? Like the people you were with, what you were witnessing on the backside.
So when I walked out, it was like, okay, I'm out of there. Now what? We gonna pack it in? We gonna go home? We gotta wait for people? Like I was ready for the next thing, which I didn't know how long we were gonna have to wait till everybody regrouped at the buses. So we went out to the grate and we waited there, and we observed the cops going up the steps and everybody coming down, and we observed the whole back of the area clearing out, and not because of police presence. It's pretty much done. Remember, the rallies weren't going down. It's over. It's January 6th. It's not the warmest day. There's a stiff breeze. Everybody starts going home. It's over. It's over. So we're standing on top of the grate where the warm air blows up, and we're waiting for the rest of the people to come for the bus. Now, cell phone service is starting to get restored. My phone's starting to ring. Hey, where you guys at? We're in the back. We're waiting for you. Come around. So by about 4:30, we're done. We're going to start walking away from the Capitol. Our group kind of met at that grate. We did see some Antifa type guys, and I forget the name of the sect of the gang, something the African Israelites or something.
Yeah. You might be on the nose.
Well, guess what? These guys were calling people racist and bigots and starting fights. So they started picking on this old white couple, and Teddy said, hold my hat. So I hold his hat, and he went over to him. He says, look, he says, you want to go after somebody? Don't go after these people. Go after me. And the kids started jumping up and down, and blah, blah, blah. And Teddy's like...
And this is by the grates that you guys are standing on?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So the white couple leaves the scene because Teddy rescued them from these
and Teddy's a big, imposing guy.
Oh, yeah, Teddy. And that's why this guy was like... He wanted to cry, and I think he started crying because he wanted to try to, reach out and hit Teddy, but he knew that if he ever hit Teddy, he would be destroyed. So he kind of was jumping around, and Teddy's like, "Come on, man, you just got to let it go." And this kid was like, and he finally realized, like, I will get really hurt if something goes wrong. So he just walked away. So there was antagonists in that crowd. The MAGA, the Trump people, the people that I know and see, they aren't those people. But those people were there, as evidenced by who was on the scaffolding. You know what I mean? They didn't have Trump capes and Trump flags and Trump hats. They're dressed in black. So as we're walking, and so it's uneventful. We're walking away from the Capitol. Now is when we see the vans pull up, and we see Capitol Police in riot gear circling the Capitol. But the day's already over. It's done.
3 hours later?
Yeah. This is like 4:30, because we're walking away from down the left side of the Capitol as you're facing it. We're walking down the left side of the Capitol, and the vans are pulling up, and here comes the police. Because remember, the police were on the side of Constitution Avenue at 1:30. standing down. There's no radio chatter. There's no the Capitol's under attack. There's no people saying people are crawling up the scaffolding. Like there's no police around the back of the building or even at the Supreme Court side sealing off any of the building. Like this is it's entrapment. If we're not supposed to be there and they're expecting this riot, okay, what did you do about it? Oh, nothing. Okay, so then why did you let me walk up the steps? Why did you open the door?
Did you see any no trespassing signs?
None. I have my video. I could show this to you. All the different areas. Like I have the video of the people walking up from the ellipse. I have the video standing next to the cops where there's no chatter, and we're watching the black dressed assailants on the Capitol in the front. I have the video.
But you're calling them that because you don't know what else to call them?
What else were they? What else?
Do you think, are you 100% sure that they were not part of?
No. But I do know this, because the FBI did ask me, well, what's the next event? When is the next shoe going to drop? When is the next mob outlaw event going to happen? I said, guys. I said, really? I said, that's it. Well, we're worried about these type of events happening at state capitals. I said, it's not going to happen. And it didn't. None of this, there was nothing. Democrats did it.
Still to this day, it has not happened.
It hasn't happened. But in the interim, the Democrats did take over state houses and things like that, which there was no issue.
They were at the state. They were at the federal capitol.
Yeah,
last
Wisconsin,
week.
all this stuff. Right. They continue to do it. But the point I make is, if this is part of a concerted effort and the Proud Boys were still planning this and everything was supposed to be the next iteration, it wasn't. It didn't. That was it. January 6th. Go down, contest the certification, and that's it. It's over, America. And that's it. It was over. It's after that they put up the fencing and had the National Guard sleeping. It's all production. Politics is signaling and messaging. The military sleeping on the floor for what?
Well, I mean, perspective. The summer before, they did put up. They had tens of thousands of law enforcement and barriers the summer before for George Floyd.
And George Floyd,
right?
BLM.
So somebody like me, right? When I look at mostly peaceful protests, that's the moniker
right.
associated with them,
yes.
right? So when you think about people who are mostly peaceful protests, why would you have like 10 times the defensive personnel and equipment as opposed to the ones that you are calling Nazi, fascist, authoritarians, which throughout history would be those are the boogeymen. So why would you have that's always a thing that's always and I think that we know why, but it's always bothered me that they would get all that protection for the mostly peaceful people, and the ones who we've been told are domestic terrorists.
Right. Democracy's at stake.
Yes.
Here they come.
But the domestic terrorists, they don't have the same equivalent or even a tenth of that.
As evidence. Remember, that term is critical. As evidence. It's not my opinion. It happened. The narrative and the definition are a lie. Because if that's really what we are, then why didn't that go down that day? And why didn't they have that type of security? So
it's always been an interesting question to me.
It's a glaring point that needs to be made and adopted. People can hear that just because we're saying it, but do they adopt that train of thinking, critical thinking, like, yeah, okay, well, I've heard these guys are really bad, so why wasn't there security? And why didn't they have National Guard? Oh, because they were requested by Donald Trump, but they were told to stand down by Nancy Pelosi. And if you know this, the Speaker of the House is in charge of Capitol Police. It's a totally separately run entity, and nobody can say anything to them except the Speaker of the House. So, who was the Speaker of the House? Nancy Pelosi. Sad.
Getting back to the buses, because I did want to spend a bunch of time on the 6th, and then we're gonna move on. Getting back to the buses, you guys now you have a group of people who now have to come back to Northeast Pennsylvania.
Yes.
There's a mood down on the bus?
There's 200 people.
What's the mood going back? What's the feeling? What are the things that are being said? What is everybody like, uh-oh, we just fucked up, or is it?
First, it's like herding cats.
Okay.
We're down on D Street, and I have 200 people that have to get back on the bus. Now
Because you're responsible for that.
Right. And I take that seriously. Remember, 30 years of corporate management, I've got things planned. Everybody's got my number. I'm giving directions. We're getting people back in there. And long story short, because my phone's ringing off the hook, I'm running 3 to 4 blocks away and getting people, rescuing them from where they were. Here's where we're at. Come back. Go this way. It's 10 to 6. And I have 2 people that are not on the bus. And they're closing down Washington, D.C. 6 p.m., we're closed down. If you're in the city, you're staying in the city. The bus drivers tell me, Frank, I'm leaving. Okay. Well, I have 3 buses full. The last bus, I'm missing 2 people. And I'm calling them. And they finally answer, oh, where we at? We don't know where we're at. I said, turn around. What do you see? What's the street sign? We don't know where we're at. I said, look, please, walk up to a policeman. And I said, start crying to him. Cry that you got to get back to the bus. Maybe he'll give you a ride. You got to do something. The bus is leaving, and I can't help you. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't know where we're at. I said, where's the nearest cop? Go find him. Go tell him what's going on. They couldn't do it. And they were left. Sad to say. Now, you know them. They're, and they'll tell you the story. It ends up they were right in front of Trump Tower. And all they had to do was basically walk across the mall, the lawn, over to D Street. But they were so wound up and so disorganized that they couldn't do it. So we left.
Like, were they disoriented, or were they?
Whatever it was, I think they were a little bit disoriented to start with. So we left with 190 people. And on the way home, they called me and they said, Frank, we got on the train and went from Maryland to Philly, and then we're taking a bus home from Philly to Scranton. So we ended up only leaving 2 behind, and that's because they were shutting down the city. And my bus driver's like, I'm still out there running up and down the sidewalk, talking to them. He's like, Frank, I'm going. You're either in or... because I'm not staying here when they shut down the city.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, the people that came back and were on the bus, because remember, we didn't see a lot of that craziness the way ABC orchestrated, but they're like, this was great. We made history. This is fantastic. Guys would tell me like, look, I felt 200 years of history rush over me. Like it's very positive because remember, United States, how we were founded, how we were formed, like it's you have to be involved. Like, you know what I mean? It's not always, because if we don't get involved, we don't state the facts as they are and reject this narrative and the premise, we're not going to have these United States, and we're not going to have our freedoms, and we're not going to be sitting here talking like this, because this would be illegal, and this would end you up in the gulag.
Right.
You know?
So they felt like they were part of something monumental.
Yep.
And they felt that they were they felt like they participated in something important.
Exactly.
At least the people on your bus. At what point?
All the buses. In fact.
Well, on your buses.
A common comment that I get from people that know what happened is like, hey, you know what? I had to work that day or I would have been with you. That's what I'm saying. I stopped at 4 buses, $8,000. I could have gone to 10. People were just calling. People still wanted to go. Done. So.
At what point on that 3 to 4 hour ride home did anybody go, uh-oh?
Me. The rest of them didn't. When I saw CNN come up on my phone, and then ABC, and then I'm like, shh, where are these people getting my phone number? Like, what?
So you didn't even have people calling or texting you guys going like, what did you do?
No. It's the media. Because you know what? Everybody knew we were down there. The only person that said was my wife, like, oh my God, what are you doing down there? I hope you didn't go in. Oh no, I didn't go in.
Yeah.
So that's when I knew it was not the day that I witnessed. And like I said, as that, and I started reviewing my messages. Hi Frank, this is so and so from CNN. I'm like,
how did they get your number?
No doubt, either my attorney, which I don't think so. Local media, because you know what? I know Andy Mahalchik, I know Peggy Lee, all the reporters. Like, I've been doing this since on the school board in 2000. My number was listed on Facebook, which a week after the Capitol, because I had pictures of J6, deplatformed, gone. Like, not you're in jail or not suspended, gone. Like, no warning, no nothing. I'm gone forever. The only time I saw those pictures again was the feds. The feds had every Facebook picture, every text, every email. They got it all. So if anybody thinks that they don't have your stuff, they have whatever at the fingertips. Done.
So you're on your way back, and your phone starts blowing up.
Blowing up.
And there's what? What'd you say? There's 60 people on a bus?
Yeah.
Is anybody
40 people on
Is anybody on the bus going like,
no, nobody else is getting calls. No, not.
But is your
really.
spidey sense going up like,
yeah.
Hey, did anybody else do something?
That's why when they asked if I went in the Capitol, I said no, because at this point I realized, this is pretty big. But walking through for 8 minutes, not a big deal.
To be fair, you're talking to the press who you don't know, right? It's not like you and the press talk to each other from bubble baths,
right?
No. So, to me, there is no. I'm not a liar, but to me, that there is no reason to tell someone something that you don't know. That's my personal opinion. If your wife or your lawyer or whatever says, you got to tell them the truth. But you don't know who these people are.
Right.
That's not giving you a pass. But what I'm saying is like most normal people tell this stranger something that you're like, no, I'm not telling a stranger something I did.
And that's exactly what it was. Strangers calling. Like all these media, and I'm like, that's how, because you know what? There are times that I want the media to ask questions, and I want to get the message out through the media, and I call them. When they're calling me, I knew the whole day went sideways.
Yeah.
I knew the whole thing, from Trump not starting on time, to having no rallies for speakers, to having the doors open at the Capitol, to having the ninja attack warriors out there. I knew that this whole thing was like, okay, now what happens? So,
okay.
I'm going to tell you, you know what? From being on that school board and being with negotiations and the media and all that stuff, I got a pretty thick skin. I know, and you know what? Local politics is just as bad as national politics.
I agree.
National guys, we're not international. We're not doing assassinations. But aside from that, it's dirty as anything else going on in Washington. So I can handle this stuff.
Right.
But I'm thinking, this is probably pretty big.
When was it that you started to feel the heat? When was it? Did you hear rumors? Did you hear rumblings that you're like, uh-oh, I might be in the bullseye somewhere with something?
Well, a reporter called me up and said, I know you were in there. And I said, well, I wasn't. Prove it. So this reporter looked through every freaking picture for weeks until he struck gold. So that's when I knew, like, the press is
Reporters
definitely...
are historically lazy.
Oh, this guy had a it was like a dog on a bone.
For you?
He had a
or
good
just
day.
or just for
for me, personally.
something from the past?
Specifically. You know, whatever, put it this way. I'm outspoken, probably not on his political side of thinking, So then I am the enemy. So to say I was targeted, to say that articles are written with an open and identifiable bias, absolutely, for sure, 100%. Another way I knew is from just the tempo of the national media. Boy, they just ran that program and ran that narrative like minute after minute after minute. So there was no reverse because they got you. I mean, really, what happened that day, the setup, should have never happened because if there was security, it would have never happened. But it happened. So now we have the narrative, and that's when I knew, okay, something's going to go down. What's going to go down? I don't know. And then I got the phone call. And
Now, what's that phone call?
the phone call was a message on my answering machine, and it said, Mr. Scavo, this is Eric Temerance of the FBI. Could you please return my call at whatever the number was? As soon as I got that call, I didn't call him back. I called Ernie Priate. I said, Ernie, just got a call from the FBI. Because you know what? Ernie, Trump supporter, his family, his daughter, ties with Steve Bannon. You know, Ernie kind of knows what's going on. He's part of the movement, the effort. You know, he's a Republican Attorney General for the state of Pennsylvania. He's not a Democrat, so he kind of knew what was going on and things like that. So that's the first guy I thought of, like Ernie Priate. He's got contacts. He's got juice. He's got mojo. Like this is the guy to call. In retrospect, I could have called the county solicitor or a public defendant. It didn't matter. I'm going. It didn't matter what,
Really?
who, what evidence. It didn't matter. You are going to be made an example of for daring to question the council, which the council is, if you're seeing what's coming up now, that's part of who runs the CIA, FBI, all that stuff. It's deep state stuff. But you're going to be punished.
For those who don't know, deep state is basically like bureaucrats who are just in there, and I'm sure he'll expound upon it more.
You know what?
It took me a while to understand deep state and what that means.
Well, it's the principles that have influence over Department of Justice and have direct relations with Merrick Garland, Christopher Wray, FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, like all these agencies that are supposed to be out for the sovereignty of America are now weaponized, and their efforts are now inward. They're not stopping terrorists at the border. They're tracking the opposition to their state.
Right.
State.
Or what they want.
Statists, right.
Right.
Like I
Okay.
said in the beginning, for us to do what they want, we
It's
have
hard
to
for
be
people to wrap
coerced.
their head around
Yes.
like what
it's sad.
that is.
It's sad that it's to this point, but that's what it is. Because, you know, and here's the best thing. The prosecutor, the AUSA, Seth Mineros, we went through all the evidence. He said, Mr. Scavo, he said, I see. He said, you're not our biggest problem. I deal with child traffickers. I deal with the drug cartel. I deal with the very, very, very evil people. He says, you know, what you did, look, wasn't right, but we're going to recommend 14 days, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So,
What were the charges for those 2 weeks?
well, when it started out, I had four charges. Restricted area, whatever the standard 4 charges were, but I pled to parading. Now, here's the best thing. Susan Sarandon, she could get arrested for parading, and what happens? Does she go to jail?
She gets a fine.
Me? Parading? All right, you're going. And not for 14 days at a halfway house. I don't know. You want me to do that story yet, or what do you?
Yeah, well, let me get you there. So, what was your reaction when they charged you, and do you think that they were justified when they charged you with those things?
Well, yes, because they had me dead to rights. I'm on the videos. I'm there. I went in. I didn't get pushed in. I went in freely of my own accord.
You walked in like an Asian from a King Godzilla movie?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm a tourist.
Yeah.
I'm a tourist. Which, by the way...
He's so big.
Listen, I don't think I have white privilege. Because as I sit here, you guys don't know what I am. You don't know if I'm Mexican, Filipino. You have no idea what I am, right?
You seem like what America should be, like this melting pot.
Yeah, melting pot.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Italian, Polish, and Welsh.
Okay.
My son has blonde hair and blue eyes. Myself, I spend a lot of time in the pool.
Yeah.
So I love this hot weather. So I have a nice tan. Well, you can't tell what I am.
Yeah.
So with this stuff, white privilege and stupidity, we're all Americans. Let's all get together.
Sure.
So to answer your question,
So do you think your charges were justified?
Yeah. You know what? Because I went in
But the charges.
the sentencing was not justified.
That's
but
what I'm getting to. So what did you think? What did you originally think that they were going to charge you with, and what would the maximum penalty for that be? But in other words, what did you think your punishment would be based on the history of people who did those things?
People who
parading.
did similar things, like
Right.
Susan Sarandon.
Yeah.
I thought I would get a fine and a citation. Because, a lot of people that I knew said, no, you're not. You have no record. You have no priors. You're not going to jail. And I was like, yeah, I don't know about that, because the way the media has made this narrative, like this was an attack on America and this was an attack on democracy, I was like, I'm going to hedge my bets. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm certainly not saying, I'm not going to jail. I didn't know. Well, when they arrested me, they arraigned me right down here at the Neyland Courthouse down in Scranton. Oh, they put me right in the leg irons, and they put me in the chains, and I'm walking into the courtroom, and here's all. By the way, when I was down in the dungeon, in the jail cell, which they put you on ice, I went in at 9 a.m. I didn't get my hearing until about noon. All you do is just sit there, and I self-surrendered. That's. I'm not sure why they didn't break down the front doors of my house. I think it's because I was one of the first ones to go and pled guilty. I'm like, you guys got me. What am I going to say here? A lot of people said don't plead. I'm like, stop. I got to stop spending money. I got to stop this whole charade. Like, you got me. I'm on film. I did it. I'm there. Done. So I took the plea deal, which they were saying was supposed to be 14 days. So I'm downstairs in the dungeon.
So they said, Frank, we're going to get you for parading, and we're going to give you 14 days.
Parading, yep, and we're recommending 14 days.
Okay.
So I surrender, right? I'm in there. I'm laying on the stainless steel hard bench, and they put you on ice. I'm down there for 3 hours just doing nothing. So they bring me up, walk me up the hall, and I go into Judge Mahalick's chambers. Here's all the reporters, everybody's there, and here's my wife in the back of the room, and I'm like, it's sad and it's a shame, but here's your husband paraded. So she started crying. She's like, I could see her in the back of the courtroom. My poor wife. It affects my family so much. It's such a negative thing, and that's what it's designed to do.
Well, I want to get to that. Yeah.
Negative. They don't want you to stand up and speak out against them. But my wife is there, and Ernie filed to be released on your own recognizance. So thank God they did, because you know what they did to a lot of J6ers. They remanded them right to jail. So they released me on my own recognizance, and Ernie, we meet in the hallway, and Ernie says, because this is where it gets interesting. Ernie says, okay, Frank.
It's not interesting yet.
You go out, to me, because now remember, I'm used to adversity.
Yeah.
From my childhood at the drive-in and people trying to rip me off, to the school board, to all this stuff, right? So Ernie goes, just go out the back door and meet me in the office. Okay, well, if you know, I carry a Constitution with me. It's in my book right there. And my wife goes, okay, I'll go out, I'll go down to the end of the walkway. She goes, you follow me. I said, okay. Well, I go near the door, and here's the press. Andy Mihalchik, ABC, Peggy Lee, whoever's there, Fox 56. And, you know, it's my life. It's my sentencing. I'm in trouble. I'm paying the bill here. So I'm going to go out, and I'm going to tell them. So I went, and I grabbed my pocket Constitution, and I go out onto the steps, and I said, it's a great day to be an American and live in America under the Constitution. I said, I have a story to tell, but it won't be told today. Okay, well, just about that time, Andy Mihalchik goes, there's some woman at the end of the walkway yelling something. It was my wife yelling, Frank, shut the fuck up. She was freaking out because she's like, she hates when I do this. She hates it. Yeah. So she's down there yelling at Andy Mihalchik saying, there's some lady. I was cracking up, right? So we walk over into Ernie's office, and my wife had a heart attack. Right.
No
there.
shit.
Yep. From the stress, from the amount of stress that this whole thing put on her. Yeah. She's panting. She's turning red. She's like, and you know, so Ernie. That's when Ernie started saying, "You had a press conference." He said, "What the fuck are you doing?" He says, "You're going to jail." I said, well, yeah, okay. So he said, why'd you do that? I said, you know what? This is a big story in town, and I just want to let people know that, you know what? We still have the Constitution, and we still have the right to redress, and it's not a criminal offense to go down to Washington, D.C. So I said, that's why I did it. So both my wife and Ernie were totally pissed. If you know Chase Becerri, Chase was there.
Don't know, yeah.
He was Ernie's assistant. He's kind of laughing because he knows that's what I do. We're not going to go down without a fight. We're not going to. If the narrative is this, we're going to tell you what the real narrative is, so you could be the judge, whatever it is. Know both sides. Then you can make your decision. That's why I did it. So that was the arraignment, and that took such a toll on my wife that it was bad. So, you know, we brought her to the hospital, and they checked her out, and she's fine. They did a cath and did all the stuff. So, yeah, but she was off work for a while. So this thing was bad. It's designed to be bad, but it was bad.
What, after that, how long was it before they actually give you a sentence and tell you what that sentence is?
So that was in, I believe, April. I was sentenced on the day John F. Kennedy was shot, which
November
is like
22nd.
November 22nd, because that's how I associate that date. So November 22nd. So that was like 6 months, 5 months. It was a while. It was a long time to live in suspense. But since the AUSA was saying 14 days, okay, I'm going to be at a halfway house. I might be at home with a leg bracelet on. Okay, not a big problem.
Still a little bit extreme for what you did as a punishment.
Yeah.
But nevertheless.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more than Susan Sarandon got.
Yeah.
It's more than Black Lives Matter got.
Right.
It's more than any of the associations or affiliations of the Summer of Love got.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm thinking, okay, 14 days, no matter what it is, you know, we'll handle. I've handled things like this before. Not this big, but, you know, like I said, being on that school board was on the hot seat. So it comes to the day of the sentencing, and the media's all over. They're waiting outside of Ernie's office. So we go in through a side door. And thank God, let me just tell you, all this stuff was via Zoom because it was COVID. If I ever had to have attorneys drive down to Washington, D.C., appear in the courtroom before these guys, pay them room, board, mileage, and dinner, meals, I would have been more bankrupted than I was. So if there was ever a bright spot in this whole COVID dilemma, sham.
Legal Zoom.
Oh my God, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And the guy that put his feet up on the desk, that they sentenced to 4 years. I forget his name, Bingo or something like that. He was on my Zoom.
That was in Nancy Pelosi's
in the
office,
beginning.
wasn't
Yes,
it?
yeah. They gave him a good whack for doing that. But he was also on my Zoom arraignment in the beginning when we whatever they call it. So yeah, I mean,
So what do they give
saw
you?
a lot of the guys.
What do they give you?
Well, we're getting to that point, right? So now, my lawyer, Ernie Priate, doesn't practice in Washington, D.C. So now we have to get a lawyer that practices in Washington, D.C. and get Ernie admitted to the bar in Washington, D.C. so he could co-practice. So this was not easy. And at this point, nobody in Washington, D.C. would take my case. It's 4 weeks. The judge is saying, Mr. Priate, you got to get legal counsel in D.C. And Ernie's saying, hey, I'm trying. Nobody will take the case. Evan Corcoran ends up taking the case. Evan Corcoran's father was a Republican state senator in Maryland, and he practices law in D.C. So that's why this Evan Corcoran took my case, because nobody else would. And Evan ended up being Steve Bannon's lawyer. So if you're ever watching Steve Bannon, you see his lawyer. Evan is the tall guy. He's about 6'6", and that's how Steve Bannon got Evan Corcoran, because he's the only guy that would take my case. So
Okay.
we get Evan Corcoran, and he's expensive. You know, Ernie is fairly priced. Evan Corcoran is just crazy. So Ernie's like, let's call Evan. I said, no, let's not. Like every time, like, no, because I have to stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
I got to stop spending the money because you burn through a retainer like that. So we're there in his office the day of the sentencing, and it's about 11 a.m. And here's the chilling part. I mean, because the judges and the government, they're arrayed against you speaking out. So the guy's name, and this was a Reagan appointee. His name is Royce Lamberth from Texas. He's got the Texas drawl. Well, Mr. Scavo, you should have known the gig was up. And I'm like, okay. And they show the Facebook post, you know, because they're presenting the case against you. And he said, what do you have to say in your defense? I said, well, you know, I really shouldn't have been there, and I shouldn't have done that. Entry into the Capitol, not taking the buses, I'm going. That's our right to redress government. But entry into the Capitol, I shouldn't have done it. After I thought about it, it's not good. And I said, but the doors were opened for me. He stopped me right there. He said, Mr. Scavo, do you know the last guy that told me the federal government opened the doors for him? Well, I gave him 42 months. Woo! I'm like, that was Jacob Chansley. Because I watched this judge, and I knew who he was, the shaman. He's the guy that sentenced Jacob Chansley to 42 months. So when your judge tells you, the last guy that told him, do you think I'm going to continue on that course and say, but they did open the doors? Your federal government pressed the button? Because just like in a jail, you can't open one door. All three doors open simultaneously. Well, that's not me. I don't have a key fob. I don't have a swipe card. I don't have a keypad to push the code in, right? I'm a guy from Old Forge that was down there on a bus with 200 other people to watch what was going on. I cannot enter the Capitol unless what?
Somebody lets you.
You open the door.
Yeah.
When he said that, I shut up and I didn't say anything else. And guess what? My attorneys, they didn't say another word. And he said, Mr. Scavo, I sentenced you to 60 days. Good luck. And I was like, ooh, that's not 14 days. And guess what? My wife and my son said, see, Dad, I told you so. You're going to jail. And I was like, thanks, guys. Now, here's the best thing. Ernie and Evan, speechless. The AUSA, Seth Manieros, we were like this. Speechless. They didn't say a word. I'm like, okay, so he just gave me 60 days. I was only supposed to get 14. What else is he going to say? And Evan Corcoran goes, because remember, now it's November 22nd, right? He goes, Your Honor, can Mr. Scavo report after the holidays? And the judge hesitates, and he goes, well, I'll grant you that. And Evan Corcoran says, thank you. And that's that. He said he told me something like, good luck, Mr. Scavo. And that was it. Done. I'm going to jail. 60 days. I never had a parking ticket.
Report when?
So, in the meantime, they don't here's you're now in another government bureaucracy. So Evan and Ernie said, "Don't worry, you're going to a camp. It's a this is not that it's not serious, but your first timer." So I get from the Bureau of Prisons. It says you are assigned. They were hoping I went to Canaan up here. Well, Canaan was where all the gangs are. I don't want to go to Canaan. Right. So now I'm thinking, where are they going to send me? They could send me to Williamsport. They could send me to Connecticut, Danbury. That's where Steve Bannon's at. That's Cordaro. They play with you. They'll screw you and put you somewhere and then transport you. So I get the thing, report January 15th to Fort Dix, New Jersey. Fort Dix, okay. So in the meantime, I get kidney stones. I'm like, oh, geez, I got some pains. So I was able to delay it until President's Day. So I report to jail on President's Day. Now, in the meantime, I called Bobby Cordaro. I said, Bobby, what Fort Dix, what to expect? And he said, look, he said, it's loud in there. So probably get something from your doc to help your nerves and help you sleep. So I did that. I called my doctor. I said, look, he knows what's going on. I'm going. So he gave me a script, which helped, because I take that about 10 o'clock at night. By 11 o'clock, I'd be out, because when you're in jail, it's like being at the playground 24/7. They're yelling in there. They're goofing around. They're playing games. They're watching basketball. It's not a quiet place. They're playing cards. They're arguing. So that definitely helped out. But when I reported on President's Day, all the people that had seniority weren't there. It was just newbies and guys. So they tried to strip search me. They didn't know how to do it. They didn't give me the right clothes. But when I walked in, one of the lieutenants was there. He's at the computer. He goes, what are you doing here? I said, well, you guys kind of know what I am. He goes, yeah, you're the first of your kind we got here. So he says, I want you to get in here, do your time, keep your head down, and get out. He says, by the time I get your paperwork done, you'll already be gone. And he's down there typing. I said, well, that's okay. I said, I'm going to the camp. He looks up. He goes, oh, no, you're not. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you got flexed up. I said, flexed up? What the F is that? He goes, you're going to general population.
No shit.
I said, they're fucking with me already. And he said, just get in and do your time. So guess what? I go to Gen Pop, right in there with everybody. I walk in there, and they don't know, because you really don't have computer access. You could send an email, but you can't go on the internet. You could make a phone call, but you get 5 or 10 minutes, right? So the guards knew who I was, and they're like telling the rest of the guys. And the other guys are coming in like saying, hey man, I would have been right with you. I bunkied with the guy that was BLM. He said, what's wrong with you guys, right? I said, look, they're letting these illegals in. They're going to be taking your Social Security and your health care. So by the time I was out of there, I actually was getting along with all these guys, just kind of telling them what the real story was. So, I mean, it's not the place to be.
No.
And I ended up, here's a funny story. I started working out because there's nothing to do. And they watch the same movie every day, Fast and Furious 7. Same one, all the time. I'm like, can we put something else different on tonight? No, man, come on, you got to watch this show. I'm like, come on, not again. Right, 60 days.
Right.
But there was a guy there named Jamal. And me and Jamal, we're the only guys that swept up and cleaned up. We'd mop, we'd clean things, you know what I mean? It was kind of a laid-back atmosphere because Fort Dix is where you're going on your way out. This is where the guys that did 20 years, now it's their last 2 years, they're at Fort Dix. Not a lot of guys are going to cause problems. So, I mean, there were still fights, but they weren't causing big problems. So Jamal we start doing burpees, and he knows all this physical fitness routine, which I don't work out at all. I don't do push-ups, nothing, not a sit-up. Jamal, because we're bored, now we start training. So there's about 5 other guys that come over. They're training with us. We have find an empty room. They're doing pull-ups off the fire sprinkler bars. I'm like, guys, don't. You pull that down, it's gonna flood the whole building.
Yeah.
They're still up there doing them. It was crazy, but they got me up to 1,000 push-ups a day.
No shit.
1,000. I'm like, it didn't happen overnight, but that's how boring it is. And for me to do push-ups, burpees, we were doing these things like. So I called my daughter up. I said, look, you got to send Jamal. I want you to send him $50 through Western Union, right? And 2 days later, she goes, do you know what Jamal did? I said, no, we really don't talk about that in here. Grand Theft Auto, stole a U-Haul van with the grandmother and a kid in it, and then jumped out of a window at the hospital trying to escape and broke both his ankles.
Oh no!
So my wife
and he's doing burpees.
Right, and it's me and him. My wife and daughter were going insane. You can't. I said, look, out of all the guys that are here, me and Jamal, we got this routine going, and we got other guys going on it. Like, you know what I mean? And me and him are the only guys that are cleaning up. Believe me, they don't. The jail is not clean. You mess it. It's your mess. There was nothing to do. We sweep and mop it. So you know what?
So I have a series of single answer questions.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever committed punishable violence in your life?
Never.
Do you wish harm on other people?
No.
Have you ever harmed another individual in your life with vicious intent?
Never.
Do you think you are a criminal?
No.
Are you an insurrectionist?
No.
How long did you spend in jail?
60 days.
How much time should you have spent in jail?
14 max, 0 for the circumstances and how I was let in the building. Fine.
Okay, moving on to, we're going to close up soon because I'm really grateful that you spent your time with me. So, it's a lot of questions, Frank.
Yeah, there's a lot of answers.
What was it like on your first day out?
Of prison? Whew. Well, got out, went to my daughter's down in Philadelphia, popped a bottle of champagne, went out and bought all new clothes because I had lost 15 pounds. Went down to Lululemon, spent $1,000 on all stuff. Lululemon. That's my daughter. Listen, right? Lululemon. That's where we.
Did you get tight pants?
And, yeah. Well, you know what, Mark? Well, okay. Well,
I'm out. I have 2 Lululemon shirts, so I'm just kind of I'm passively harassing.
You know what? And the pants are different than the shirts. They're a little tighter.
Yes, they are.
But guess what? That's what they wanted to do. Take Dad to Lulu. We're getting him a new outfit, so we went and spent $1,000. Went to lunch. And then we went to Fugu de Chao, right? So everything's good. We're eating, me, my son, my family, my daughter's boyfriend. So it was pretty good the first day out. Now, when you're in jail, every 2 hours, knock on the door, shine the light on you, make sure you're there. You didn't escape.
Is that a wellness check?
Wellness check. So guess what? The first couple nights, woke up every 2 hours. But after that, gone, done. Interesting part is, when I went to the jail the first couple days, right? The guys in there are like, because now the guards talk. They put you in here for a misdemeanor? Because that's what, I'm not a felon. That's not a felony. It's a misdemeanor. It's like a ticket from the state police that I went to jail for. And those guys in there are like, man, you don't belong in here. This is too dangerous. It's dangerous for you. I'm like, yeah, well, that's what happens. That's what they did. So even the people in jail know the injustices. despite the narrative of the local media, right, and the United States government, they know that this was not an insurrection. They know that it was not, at least from my part and the other guys that didn't break through buildings and assault police officers. Look, you're breaking in, that's wrong. That's a punishable offense. You're assaulting a police officer, he's telling you not to go that way, that's wrong. There's no difference between doing it in Scranton right here or down in Washington, D.C. It's freaking wrong. I didn't do that. So when those guys are saying, man, it's too dangerous, and I'm not saying that these guys were looking out for me, but guess what? They were. I was in there with the black Muslims. And these guys, they were doing their prayers, and they had their clique, but on the side, they're like, hey, Frank, man, I want to get with you. Because I know finance, I know real estate, and they're like, I want to get with you. I want to do apartments. I want to do some financing. So I talked to these guys, no problems, no issues. Like, wasn't an arrogant SOB. Whatever they wanted to do, you know what I mean? I made the best of it. And that's all. Maybe I helped a couple of those guys. Here's the problem in America. Our courts and our education system, why are all these guys in jail? Mark, I'm going to ask you that question again, because Winston Churchill said, if you're going to make a point, come around and hit it again. Why are all these guys in jail? You're not talking about the military-industrial complex? Jails are a big what? Revenue source. The courts, right? And education. If these guys could make money, if we gave them a good education, they wouldn't be there. But I don't blame them. You don't want to work at McDonald's, right? When you could sell all this stuff coming in over the borders and make thousands and drive these Mercedes. That's what it is. So if you give them an alternative and teach them how to work and make money and be capitalistic, they're not going to be in jail. Because that's what they say. When I get out, here's what I want to do. I want to start a meat business. The guy wanted to be a meat butcher and sell Amish meat. I mean, these guys have ideas and they're smart. But guess what? Do we have opportunity in America? No, we don't give them opportunity. So those poor guys are in jail because what?
We failed them.
We failed them and they wanted to make some money.
If you're not going to help me, I'll help myself.
And that's what they do. And they do it well. You know what I mean?
Do you believe that the media was fair in the coverage of you?
No. The narrative and the definitions, like no one was ever charged with insurrection. No one was charged with insurrection. Maybe assault and battery, different things, but never insurrection. So if this was a big insurrection, it's the title and the narrative. What's the definition of an insurrection? Not that. It was unarmed. In fact, the guy that had one of the only firearms, it took them 2 years to find out who he was. They knew who I was in days. How could they possibly not know who that guy was with the gun until what? Public pressure said, where's this guy? Why didn't you ever get him? Like with Ray Epps. Oh, Ray Epps. Not. Wait a minute. This guy he did more than I did. He said, go to the Capitol. He said, go inside the Capitol. He's inciting a riot. What happened to Ray Epps? He's not in jail.
There's footage of him in the front of where the inauguration is.
He's there.
Doing weird things.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what could the media have done differently in regards to you and many other situations? Where did they fail?
I think they could have presented both sides instead of just a narrative. I think they could have done what you're doing. Okay, so this is such a big thing. Let's have a sit down with Frank. Let's have an in-depth with Frank. He's a local guy. He's been in your school. You've trusted him with your kids, right? He's been elected to office. Like, what? Now all of a sudden he's the pariah? So there's a lot of things they could have done. In fact, we did a YouTube video similar to this, and within 24 hours it was taken down. So
who took it down?
The locals, City of Scranton, ECTV.
Isn't that public airways?
It's public airways, but they were pressured by the Scranton City Administration to take it down because ECTV is part of the Scranton and it's funded vis-a-vis and a quasi-government entity, right?
Yeah, but isn't that supposed to be different points of view, different perspectives, different ideologies?
Remember
to represent the people of the full cornucopia of the differences of opinion of Scranton.
That's it, right? The full story.
Except conservatives.
Well, remember, I said as evidenced, and the evidence is right there, as I stated. It's gone. It still exists, but what? You're not allowed to see it. You're not allowed to see it. Why?
So you're saying that you filmed
an interview, 45 minutes,
saying what happened?
Basically what we went over, except I did leave out the fact that I did get a call from the Scranton Times, and they wanted to embed reporters in the buses going down to Washington, D.C.
Interesting.
Yes. Frank, can we send... Now, the Scranton Times knows me, their reporters know me, and that's why they called. They called me. I didn't call them. Can we embed reporters on your buses going down to Washington, D.C.? I declined. No, you can't. Why? Because the narrative and the negative press that those poor people that went down there to redress their government would have gotten, they would have gotten their pictures and they would have slandered them and smeared them and said these people are part of the insurrection.
Well, that was, I mean, you denied them before January 6th, correct? You denied the reporters before January 6th.
No, that's the first time I ever denied the reporters anywhere.
But that was specifically for going down there.
Yes,
so it was the first time you denied them.
Yes.
And
otherwise, I tell them whatever
So let me get this straight. You denied them because you were like you're not going to be objective in the representation of what these people
not going to be truthful. You're not going to portray the actual event from our side, from this group of people going down from Scranton, Lackawanna, Luzerne, Broome County, wherever
and you
they
knew
were
that,
from.
And you
I
knew
knew that in advance. I know that's why they called. Put it this way. When I served on the school board, I would have to call up the reporter and say, that article's not accurate, that's not what I said. And they would say, Frank, that's not what I wrote. The editors put that in.
Really?
Yes. So reporters quite often don't report
their words.
Their words. It is what? Censored, augmented, and the narrative is fulfilled by the editors. Absolutely.
And you have a basis to say this because it has happened to you.
And it's happened to me. And I've asked reporters, hey, I don't see you at so and so anymore. I quit. I had it with the editors. But I'm not. That's not what I said. I'm not allowing them to do this anymore. So it's quite common in America for this narrative to be perpetuated because they need the job, and the media, like you know, that's supposed to be for the people and be judicious and be truthful. It's not. They have a narrative.
People knew you before this whole debacle. Did you, because of what was written about you and what the media did that change relationships with people in your life?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
You know, it's sad that, well, put it this way. My mother was worse than the FBI. My mother subscribes to the Scranton Times. And every day they'd put the article in, right? And you know what? She would call me up and be crying and saying, what did you do now? What? I said, Mom, it's the same article. They just reworded it. Nothing changed. This is just a narrative.
They want
so
clicks.
Every day they would write something, but it was the same thing, just the first paragraph last and then the last paragraph first. Nothing. But I will tell you this, and this is Bob Kadlubowski, reporter, called me up, and I wasn't talking to the media.
Where is he from?
He's from the Citizen's Voice. And Ernie said, don't talk to the media. But I knew Bob. Bob called me up, asked me a series of questions like he's asking me today, right? What's going on? How you been? Are you back to work? And then the last one, he says, well, what do you think's for the future? I said, well, you know what? Once things get back to normal, you know what? We'll get rallies. We'll go to things. And I said, basically, we'll be back. 3 words. We'll be back. out of 20 minutes of conversation, guess what they write? Scavo states, will be back. What does that mean? Right? Oh, he's an insurrectionist. We're going back to Washington. My mother called me up screaming, why did you talk to them? What did you say? Now, I don't get the paper. I don't support them. My life is great without them. And life would be better for our local residents if they weren't, right, led down that path.
Sure.
So here's my mother crying and screaming. I said, why? What does it say? You said you're going back. I said, oh my God. I said, I talked to that reporter for 20 minutes. I told him that, you know what? Family's doing well, business is doing good, you know what? I'm in good health, and that once things get back to normal, we'll be back to having rallies and meetings and everything. I said, I'm not going back to Washington. I said, does it say that? She said, no, but it says you'll be back. Well, right there is the narrative. We'll be back. Why don't you print the truth about that whole conversation? Why did you pick 3 words out of in 20 minutes, averaging, you know what, it's 20 words a minute or whatever it is? You picked 3 out of 1,000? Right, guess what? So did it affect relationships? My mother would call every day in What's Next, and she'd read the same article written a different way and say, oh my God, what did you do now? So that's the way the media controls. And look, my mother, you know what? She's part of my family. She knows that I'm going to speak up. She knows that my main thing is to two things. Like, let people know if we don't exercise this Constitution, then this will work just like Russia's. It won't. If we, the people, don't enforce this and tell our government, this is our document, you're living by it, we're done, all of us. I don't care if you're woke, LGBTQ, whatever, you're all going to be in the same gulag. We'll all be in the same cell. And I don't ever want to sit next to you, Mark, and say, see, I told you so. So that's why I do this. I try to give people courage, reason, let them know that, look, we're all in this together. I mean, we might not have 100% the same view, but as long as you could say, look, I want vanilla, and I say I want chocolate, right? Guess what? We're going to coexist. But when we all say, you can't say you want chocolate anymore, you're only getting vanilla. Now what happens? So it's simple, but that's my whole purpose in life is to speak out, speak up, love my family, be successful businessman, all that stuff. But in the meantime, we can never lose sight of the fact that if we don't live and honor, worship, and enforce the Constitution, we're all screwed. So it did affected my wife. She had the heart attack. Other people, you know what? Most of the time when we go out for dinner, people are like, you'd be surprised. People say, hey man, I was on your bus. But then other people like say, oh, you're that guy. So that subsided in the beginning. It was somewhat frequent. But the general acceptance by the public is, you know, aside from the media, if that narrative wasn't out there, I don't think it would, half the negativity would be there, because it's still being recited today, the negativity of that whole event and what happened because of it. So yes, it has affected.
Does it? The press is supposed to be the fourth estate. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to be the ones that speak truth to power.
Yes.
And no matter what happens, I always thought the purpose of the press was to confirm or dispute, right? Through investigation and sources and all that. And it seems like they don't do that anymore. They don't want to know. It seems like they don't want to know if it's true. Well, they assume that it's true because that's how they feel, like it should be
right.
True.
It's emotion-based, and it's based on omission. Well, we know what you did, Mark, and we're going to report that. But what he did, we're not going to say that. So he can't be besmirched, labeled, defined, but you're no good, you're racist, you're homophobic, you're bigoted. So guess what? And that's why I say it's better not to subscribe to the local media, because if they didn't say that about you and you're on the street and we meet, guess what? We're friends. We have things in common. Once they define you, once they libel you and slander you, what do you think? How do you expect the public to react? They've been told. They trust this media. I don't, but you could see the difference now. We had a border czar. Overnight, we don't. We have 15 million illegals, which I love this.
20
million. More. 40 million. That's my number. 40 million total. Okay, well, you're not getting a raise in your Social Security, right? Your Medicare goes up and you have to wait for services at the hospital because we have all these illegals. Now, where is that good for a public that if we're at, pretty much they keep saying, well, the unemployment rate is good, it's almost full employment. Then what are you going to do with 40 million extra people in here?
who aren't working, who can't work.
Okay. Now what? So there's 40 million. Who's going to pay that bill? Does the media ever tell you, well, our count is 40 million today and there's no work for them, so we want to let in 10 million more, so there's no work for them either? Did they ever run an article that says that? Never. Omission. It's omission. But yet they're going to demagogue you. Well, you don't like immigration. And I'll tell you this. You want to know how I got started? 2000. I'm on the school board. Okay, 2000. Yeah.
Old Forge, right?
Old Forge, yeah. I ran because George Bush said, you know what, we need citizen legislators. That's what he said. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. So 2007, Lou Barletta, he's the mayor of Hazleton, and he's got the illegal immigration problem. So he's down here in front of Judge, I forget the judge's name, but he's in the Neyland courthouse, and I sat in on the trial. And everybody that came in there and said, you're against legal immigration, you're against legal immigration. And I'm like, no, illegal immigration. So Lou Barletta's up there getting pilloried by witnesses and all the leftists and the media. And I'm like, screw this. I'm going to have a rally. So I go over to J.P. Lilly. I rent a PA loudspeaker and a lectern, and I set up right across from the courthouse at 4 in the afternoon. And I'm just out there saying, when they're coming out, the media, I said, we are against illegal immigration, not legal. I have the certificate of naturalization in my house, on my office wall, that says the DiStefano family came over legally. I said, we are against illegal immigration, and in that courtroom, you are accusing Lou Barletta of illegal or legal immigration, that he's a racist and a bigot. We're against illegal immigration. A woman came over, she grabbed the microphone, she's like, Frank is right, because I came from Australia, it took me 5 years to get in here, and I had to pay $10,000. That's part of my wishes. I want the average person to speak up, grab the microphone and say, no, here's the truth. And guess what? More people came, and that they were saying about their stories and how they had to pay to come here. So I figure, okay, this first rally was pretty good. I'm going to schedule another one. I have another one on the steps of the courthouse, but this time, first illegal immigration rally in Northeast Pennsylvania, Luzerne and Lackawanna County. There's 375 people here. The cops helped me out, and I was supposed to be on the Jeff Walker show, KRZ. He wanted me to call in. And the cell phones were just out, right? I have the cell phone. But everybody's all over, Frank, how are we doing? And I'm late to call in to Jeff Walker. And he was mad because he thought I was a professional rally radio guy. And I'm like, Jeff, I said, yeah, it's a big thing. Just have everybody come on down. And that was pretty much the first time that I said, screw this. We got to do. We as a public speaking, public event, we have to support these efforts against illegal immigration, because there's crime down in Hazleton, there's murders down in Hazleton, and they're from the illegals that are here illegally. So, that's pretty much when the press started putting the fingers and pointing like, oh, well, look at this guy. He's bad for the area because he's against immigration.
He's a xenophobe and a
right,
bigot.
Xenophobe. But they it's by omission. Remember, he's against immigration. No. Illegal immigration. Tell the truth. Give them the whole story, not just your little story. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel that the local media. Do you think the local media respects its audience?
You know, they did, but now with these acquisitions by the local media, Tega, and Tegna and WRGN. No, I don't see the local stories anymore. I don't see the in-depth. I don't see the coverage. No, they aren't telling us the truth. They aren't telling us what's going on locally. You know, another issue is you just had Pennsylvania American Water, who is majority owned shares by BlackRock, dump all that dirt from the Dunmore Dam into the Lackawanna. Now, you know what that did? That destroyed that river for years to come. Is it covered? Well, they did a 1 or 2 minute thing on it. There is still dirt by the truckloads in the Lackawanna River, but nobody addresses it. They should be held liable for that. They should not be given a rate increase. And you know what? Maybe I step outside the boundaries of what people accept, but just like with the rain tax, I'm from Lackawanna County. We don't have it. I go down to Luzerne County to fight it. And just because we spoke up and went there was a 60% reduction in their bills. When they first wanted to start charging for the rain tax, it was $325. We got it down to like $160 just because we went and spoke up. Now, isn't it worth speaking up? Which, by the way, they have not added a pipe. They haven't added a holding system. They have done nothing to affect the water quality going into the Susquehanna that leads into the Chesapeake. But that's why we did it. Well, wait a minute. You're robbing every homeowner, right? That you're taxing with this rain tax because you didn't do anything.
Do you think that there's no money for good media? Like, in other words, like, if you want to do like a story, like let's say what Pennsylvania American Water did up on, right? I don't know if they have enough resources to say, like, this is your story for the next like 3 weeks. Like, you need to focus on this. You need to get to the bottom of this, because I think what media is doing right now, which I think is a terrible detriment to them, is like in the process of trying to cut costs, you have now diminished important stories, like stories that could be told coverage. And you know, so I bring it back to, like, we're a one-paper town. Do you think that they have been fair and respectful to their readers in telling the truth? No, and that's a reason that their subscriptions go down, whether it's print media or whether it's video media. But is that disappointing? Is that like? Oh yeah, it's terrible, because so you have people going around on basically wrong information, right, making judgments and assumptions. Exactly. So, and that's where this comes into play. What we're doing today, like, that's the niche. This is the future, where you're going to have a couple of guys sitting around talking about the issues, and you might disagree, but as long as I'm hitting the facts out there, you could say, well, you know, that's not what I thought, but yeah, if there's 365 million gallons a day pouring into the Lackawanna River from the Old Forge borehole that's polluting everything orange and no life can live in it, then isn't that what we fix instead of whatever else they're trying to do? Like, don't you, in business, don't you have priorities and agendas and, like, work them down? That's not what government does. And the media is not following it. They're not helping at all. Like, I don't see it. It was, like, when we first did the rain tax, Andy Mahalchik was there, the meetings. Guess what? Andy, you don't see Andy anymore. And when you call him, he doesn't answer. Like, so that was, you know, I don't see Peggy Lee anymore. Do you think in their mind you're viewed as, like, persona non grata? Or do you think that do you think there's something else? I think it comes from higher up. So you think it is persona non grata? Yeah, for anybody, any issue. They're not in the issue. They're just 10 to 30 second sound bites, so people could say, "Oh, bad. Oh, good. Oh, bad. Oh, good," and that's it. There's no critical. They don't develop critical thought. They're just shown what to think. It's sad, and it's effective, right? You would never think. Look.
You have the Olympics. The girl got punched in the face.
That was amazing.
Quit.
That was incredible.
No, okay.
That should have never been allowed.
Right. So what are people saying? Well, maybe she shouldn't have been there. No.
He shouldn't have been there.
He shouldn't have been there, right? But that's what I'm saying. You lose critical thought. You lose the ability to speak up. And all of a sudden, what? You're just a bystander witnessing the world go over the edge.
Do you think the media is complicit in the dumbing down of its citizens?
Yes, 100%. We're not. We're getting the word out there. But overall, the media, the censoring, the Facebook throttling, the Facebook jail, you know what I mean? Look at how Twitter has turned around. Now, Twitter, you could pretty much put your stuff on there and get the word out. Yahoo. YouTube, right? Boom. Knock you right out. Rumble, different. You could put it up there. And Rumble, you could decide, this guy's a quack, or listen, I had the same results.
I'm a free speech absolutist now, and I believe that the only answer to incorrect speech is more speech. Let the community of ideas figure it out. Have the debate. That's why I liked moving over to X, because it was like you have diametrically opposed opinions who are able to have a conversation. You know, and the ones who flip out, you know, they're gone anyways. They're not worth the argument. You know, where it's like, you know, Trump, good people on both sides. He's a monster. He likes
7 years for them to fact check.
7 fucking years, Frank.
7 years. And then,
7 years.
It's not a lie. Oh, but I want to show you this. When you said about persona.
And then we're going to close this out.
Sure. So when I served on the Old Forge School Board, right, I got a notice because I was in the media, and I'm talking about things that directly affect the education of the students at Old Forge, the taxpayers, and the teachers. So on October 4, 2004, right, they write me a letter. This letter is intended to put you on notice that the board members of the Old Forge School District who have affixed their signatures to this letter did not approve of your recent statements to the public about negotiations. In particular, we don't appreciate the fact that you feel the need to inform the media via newspaper or the airwaves of the actions. Therefore, we ask that you cease and desist. And there's the signatures from my fellow board members.
Wait, is that? Let me see.
So, you know what I did? I walked in, I said, guys, you signed this? I said, here's what I know. You didn't vote for me. The people did. So guess what?
So they're mad at you.
Yeah.
Can you see that, Dan? Here, hold on. I'll turn it like that. So the board, the Old Forge School Board got together and said basically, how dare you tell the press what we're doing?
Yep.
How dare you be honest about what is transpiring here?
Exactly. With public money. Now, let me tell you, it was funny because I'm working at my job. It's 7 a.m. The superintendent calls me on the phone just before caller ID. And I said, Frank speaking. He goes, Frank, it's Gene. What the hell did you do? I'm like, I don't know. Something happened? What? He goes, did you talk to the Scranton Times? I said, oh, yeah. I said, remember you gave us the terms of the contract? I said, well, she called me. She wanted to know. She called me last night. He goes, you can't do that. And I said, well, you never told me. I didn't know you couldn't do this stuff. But I did it.
But are you restricted?
No, you're not. But guess what? That's the world we operate in. We tell you what to say, do, and think. And now you get somebody that is a critical thinker, thinks outside the box. And the girl asked me a question. Hey, do you have the terms of the contract?
I do.
It's a public contract.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell me? Yeah. And here it is in the paper. I was like, I thought I did something wrong. When he called me, I was like, holy shit, what did I do? As soon as he said what I did, I said, oh, you never told me I couldn't tell that. And this is a public contract negotiation, so guess what? Too bad. And then they gave me that. So, yeah. You know what it's like? Here's what it is. Remember this. The Tea Party. General George Washington was not happy that the Tea Party came and did that. But there was 119...
You mean the Boston Tea Party?
The Boston Tea Party.
Yeah.
The Boston Tea Party. Wasn't happy. But 119 Sons of Liberty, right? What they did is they went onto those ships at dark. And it wasn't 5 minutes, throw the tea cask overboard. They cut open every bag of tea, every satchel, and threw that into the harbor. Because if you simply threw the chest into the harbor, you could have used the tea. But once you cut open every satchel and it was saturated with seawater, it was now useless. So you know how long that took them? That took them almost all night. So it took that brave band of 119 Sons of Liberty to go up there, to risk their lives to do that, and that galvanized the position of the colonies to go against the king. That was the defining moment.
Against the monarchy.
Against the monarchy. That was the defining moment in these United States that cemented people and said, we're going for it.
And what is monarchy, boys and girls? Authoritarianism.
Authoritarianism, the king.
This is a little personal. How did your family handle January 6th and the aftermath of it?
It was rough. It was rough. My father, he understood. I explained to him how it went down, what happened, the same thing we went over today. My son, he told me I was going to jail. He was one of my wife, so they knew. So my wife and my mother were affected the most. My daughter cried because, you know what? Part of the element that she hangs out with doesn't understand freedom, doesn't understand the Constitution. So, you know, oh, it's your dad. Look what he did. So, yeah, it was, but out of all, it upset my mother the worst because, like I said, worse than the FBI. The FBI didn't call me every day. My mother called me every day, and every time there was an article, the same article, I said, Ma, it's telling you the same thing. Crying. Why are you doing this to me? I said, look, I'm not doing anything. It's done. And I'm the guy, sorry I hit that, and I'm the guy in the barrel. I'm the guy in the barrel that's taking the beating, so relax. If I'm not freaking out and I'm not skitzing out, look, we're gonna address the challenge and we'll get through it. By the way, if you want to know how much this cost, $60,000 for the January 6th defense. $5,000 I was fined for entry into the Capitol and then assessed a $500 fee. So this was $65,500 for 8 minutes. Now, if you're telling me you don't see
That best be Julia Roberts.
Right, the Department of Justice complex, like the military industrial, Department of Justice industrial complex, big money maker.
Yeah.
These courts and everything else, huge money maker, billions and zillions of dollars, right? And then after I get out of jail, knock on my door. Guy comes up. He said, Mr. Scavo? I said, yes. He says, buddy, I hate to do this to you, and I don't agree to what they did with you, but you've been served. It was a January 6th committee subpoena. It never freaking ends.
Wait, January 6th committee that was done in D.C.?
Yep. January 6th committee.
So the guy serving you is with you.
Is with me. You know what, Mark, I'm telling you, before I was sentenced, I'm driving down Lackawanna Avenue in my pickup. The guy pulls up in a Ford Taurus. He goes, Scavo. He says, look, I don't agree with you, but I don't think what they're doing to you is right. They're screwing you. Okay. There's a guy that knows. Okay. You know, Frank, conservative Republican, don't agree with him. But he knows the government's out of control. I get that more often than a guy saying, oh you insurrectionist, you. Because if I get insurrectionist, it's a Scranton Times reader. Because those are the guys that say insurrectionist. They're the ones
Did they write that?
Yes.
They wrote insurrectionist?
They just, a few months ago.
They wrote insurrectionist in the newspaper?
In the newspaper.
In reference to you?
In reference to me, yes.
Were you charged with
Recently.
insurrection?
No.
Were you found guilty of insurrection?
No.
Did you serve time for insurrection?
No.
How can they...
Defined, libeled, and slandered as insurrection. But no insurrection parading, which is the lowest possible charge on federal grounds. Lowest.
Yeah.
Zero to
It's like
6
public
months.
farting.
Yes. Except for Susan Sarandon. She could fart a lot in public.
Yeah, and then have no trouble.
Parade, yes.
So now that we're like, you're what, 2 years out of prison?
3.
3 years out of prison. What are your reflections on that day, 3 years out?
My reflections on that day are,
Well, 4 years out, but 3 years from prison.
I will still return to Washington to redress the government, but I will not enter restricted space. And if there's anything that looks like restricted space, I will ask the authorities there and record it, because they might say, yeah, you can go in there, and then arrest you. I will have it on a recording, which in today's justice system, even a recording is not enough to keep you out of jail. But I will record them saying, yes, entry is not restricted, you can go there. So that's what I've learned. We still need to redress our government, but don't cross the line. And
Redressing your government is constitutionally protected.
well, so much for, like I said, this Constitution, the Russian Constitution says almost the same thing word for word, except what? The people don't enforce it. They can't, because if they speak up, they're gone. We're not to that point yet. We're close, but not yet.
Do you feel that's the path?
It's the only path. It's what makes us different from any government out there is that we, the people.
No, I mean, like, you feel like we're on the path to the opposite of this.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, a lot of people don't like it. They don't want to refer to it. But you know what? The press, which is almost gone, right? That's the First Amendment. That's almost gone. And the Second Amendment, why do they try to disarm honest citizens when they know that, guess who's shooting things up? Gangs, and they're not legally owned and registered, are they? No. Okay. Wait a minute. Then who's doing all the violence? It's not us. It's not why are they trying to take away that right?
In the history of the world, I can't think of one instance where when the government took away the weapons, they were the good guy.
Yeah. That they didn't then take away everything else.
That should make pause for everyone to really assess that idea of getting rid of, because it's the only thing that protects you. How do you hope the country will move forward from the events of January 6th? What do you think, now that the time has passed from it? I think there's a lot of people who, I mean, at the very beginning, that day, within a few days, in the few days after that, there were people who were incensed about what happened. And I'll tell you my personal anecdotal story is that, I became a conservative. I registered Republican, I believe, in September of 2020 for the first time in my life. January 6th happened, and in my head, I'm like, oh no, I made a bad decision. I wasn't watching, I was out in a shoot, right? So I couldn't watch anything that happened that day, but I made a promise with myself that I'm gonna wait 48 hours before I look at anything. And 48 hours later, I watched this 3.5 hour, do you know what Cinema Verite is?
No.
Cinema Verite is it's like a documentary, but as they happen, no narrator. It's like, CNN did this really great one about Apollo 11, that it's just like,
Here's the
day.
footage, yeah.
Here's the footage in order, and they'll do like, here's mission control, here's the launch pad, here's the times.
Right.
But there's no
Unvarnished
interviews.
truth,
Yep. So I watched that. I watched a 3-hour thing of that with timestamps, and it was Snapchat footage, Instagram footage, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, all these different amalgamations of social media put together to give you time and space. And I realized by the end of it, what we were hearing and what we were seeing, what I was seeing was two very different things. But I spent 3.5 hours.
So I never thought about this before, and your question is extremely interesting. So what should have happened? Okay, well, at 12:30 or 1 p.m., there shouldn't have been the ninja militia assaulting the Capitol. And
That's a red flag for me.
there should have been the speakers and the peaceful rally out front. And the speakers and the people from the ELIPS should have came and assembled peacefully. And then, like you said, Ted Cruz should have come out and said, okay, here's the update. We are going to contest Pennsylvania specifically because Secretary of State Catherine Boockvar went against the Supreme Court Justice ruling of Justice Alito. So in this case, we will most likely do our deliberations for the next 10 days, and then come back with a decision. If they did that, guess what would have happened? Nothing. Everybody would have went home because we redressed the government. That's brilliant. So what should have happened? That's what should have happened, except for the fact that what? Actors were there acting out. There was no one there. Remember, I think and Teddy stood next to those police. There was no call to apprehend the actors. And guess what happens? Boom. Now you entrap poor people that the emotions were high, okay? And what? They attacked the police, and they attacked the doors, and they broke in. That shouldn't have happened.
I think throughout history, we can all look and see that many governments have used individuals known as agent provocateurs. Mm-hmm. And I think I think what they should have done is eliminate suspects such as agent provocateurs, which they did not. The things that I know now about January 6th, especially on the side that you were not on, is that legally they have to use a public address system to tell the crowd to disperse 3 times.
And there was not.
They didn't do that until about an hour after throwing in flashbangs, shooting people in the face with pepper ball guns. I believe that many in those crowd were ginned up, and some of them couldn't believe that their own government was attacking them. And in a situation like that, you have created a powder keg. If you had something such as the National Guard there, which was asked for, which was denied, I don't think any of that would have happened. And I think in light of what happened on July 13th, it seems very interesting to me that things can happen by what looks like negligence, by what looks like ignorance.
But it's not.
And I think that you open yourselves up to something terrible to happen. You know, it's like, you know, I keep my doors unlocked. No one's come in 30 years, but so that means I should never lock my doors. Like, somebody, you just got to remain a little vigilant and just to make sure things don't happen. I always equated it to this way. That is, if you have a pipe leaking on the 3rd floor of your house, and it's leaking down to the 1st floor, and you do nothing to fix it, that means you want it to happen.
It's going to happen. For whatever purpose.
For whatever
Insurance,
purpose.
Whatever.
But it means you want it to happen.
Well, I want to give a compliment to our local police forces, the local SWAT teams, because I know that they would do a better job protecting President whoever if they came to town than these guys with their omission. Like, that can't possibly happen. Local guys would say, hey, somebody up there, and they wouldn't say the roof's too sloped, and they wouldn't say it's too hot. They would have policed it. So this is much more conspiratorial than we can ever fathom, because it's glaring.
Willful ignorance.
You're kind.
You know,
their job
not to. Look, we can all go to these places, and these places are probably correct.
They push us there.
Well, that's how you look like a crazy person.
We should never have to think about that, because it should never happen.
I mean, we took a 1/4 of an inch, and we would have been at civil war.
It's crazy. It's
1/4 of an inch. Final thing.
Before we do a final thing.
Yeah.
Just popped into my head. I was watching a presentation where a person was arrested January 6th and brought under the Capitol. Now, he's under the Capitol. He's arrested by Capitol Police.
On the day.
And his hands are tied for 4 hours plus with the zip ties. So you're only supposed to be zip tied for 30 to 45 minutes. He's down there for 4 hours. But what he witnessed, and this is totally, it goes to that day with the black ninja costumes. He witnessed multiple piles of these black overalls underneath the Capitol. So the thought is, these outfits, that the people that were these agent provocateurs slowly left the provocation zone.
The provocations.
Provocation zone, and went and stripped and got into their normal street clothes because as he was escorted under the Capitol, that's what he observed. So why else would there be these black piles of?
Is that guy's story out there?
It's out there.
We might have to reference it.
So guess what? That's crazy. So yeah. So he was filing against the government for being detained with these zip ties for so long, and that was part of his story.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share that maybe we didn't discuss? Maybe a bit of information or something to the people, or to your critics, to your fans, to your I don't know if you have fans, but people who I like Frank, he's a good guy.
You know what? When I go places, people say, "Hey, that's the guy," or "Man, I was on your bus," or "Hey, I would have been with you," because it is still America, and there's still a lot of people that care about America. To my critics, it could have been you. And at some point, if we don't fix this, it will be you. You're going to jail. That's the way it is. I might be there before you, but when we're in their cell together, I'm going to say, "See, I told you so." So my whole thing is look, just think. Don't let things go. Speak up. Don't let this country, because there's no place else to go, stay on it and just be vigilant. And you'll see everything that we're talking about. You'll see it that it's gonna be in your everyday life. So
my philosophy now is try to show as much love as possible.
Yeah, well,
because I think truth is love and love is truth.
Were we adversarial today?
No.
Did I take offense to you asking me any question?
Nope.
Did I say don't go there, Mark?
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
So what? It's history. It's the way I see it. It's what happened. If people believe it, so be it. But like I said, for a guy that's lived within the system, no parking tickets, no anything, no, and all of a sudden,
I mean, you sound like an evil person to me.
Yeah, because you're radical, right?
Yeah.
I'm a radical insurrectionist.
Yeah.
No, that is not what I am. I'm just somebody that says, from when I was 10 years old, make sure you're getting what you pay for. And if you need help, and if you can't afford it, we'll work together. But there's no free ride. And if somebody's giving you a free ride, there's hell to pay at the end. From what I know and I'm able to see, I can tell you, look, that's, from the former border czar to now a presidential candidate, what happened in between. And do I have the answer? I just want you to think about it.
Sure.
That's all. What happened? If you say, Frank's right, I don't want the credit. I want you to think and act. I don't need the credit. Just think. Geez, am I getting that? Did I pay for that? How come I'm getting this? So why are 40 million illegals coming to America? Because they're getting something. That's it. They're not coming here for anything else. With full employment, there's no hope of getting a job. Or like Trump said yesterday, the jobs they're taking, they're going to be our jobs because they're going to work for $5 an hour, not 20. And they'll be under the table. So then your whole tax system. Here's another interesting one. Are we still rolling or no?
Yeah, we never stop. I
Listen,
thought now I'm like the interview's not over.
Here's the best one. Governor Shapiro is supporting school vouchers. Okay, well, you know what happens when all those students go into a non-unionized school? Well, the teachers' pensions are going to collapse because now they're not paying the dues. So how is Shapiro supporting the teachers and education that we need, right, to keep people out of prison, because now we teach them how to capitalize on their opportunities, by taking all those teachers and now we're going to pay them half and put them in a cyber school. So how does Shapiro get away with that in a pro-union state like Pennsylvania?
Well, because didn't they just end up dropping him $1.5 million that they weren't supposed to?
Well, exactly.
How does that happen?
That comes from the Governors Association that the PSCA gave that donation to. So now
how's that happen?
The PSCA is taking union members' dues, right? That they want, that
giving it to the governor,
an annuity, and now they're supporting a governor
re-election
that's anti-union. I'm like, I hope the teachers are listening to this, because this will destroy.
Yeah.
Listen, it's tough being a teacher, and you're
My
looking
mom
for
was
the
a teacher,
retirement.
man. She's
Yes.
incredible.
And it's tough, right? The
Yeah,
kids,
terribly
especially
tough.
nowadays, it's tough. So you're looking at, okay, I'm going to keep teaching because I'm going to get a good payout. That's going to be gone. Because what? Because of Shapiro. But he used your dues to destroy you.
It's a little akin. It's a little akin to Queers for Palestine.
Yeah. Well, they're going off the roof in Palestine because they don't play out there.
I love.
Oh.
Well, it's chickens for KFC. You
Yeah,
know what I
right,
mean?
chickens.
That's
I'm
the
a
same
chicken.
thing.
Come here, let me pluck you. Boing.
Again, Frank, thank you so much. If you learned anything from this, it's that it's good to sit and have a conversation with people. It's good to sit and talk through things, and it's good to critically think. God forbid we don't go, that doesn't make sense, but they told me it's okay,
Yeah, right.
so I'm going to roll with it. Always question, always. And then be grateful for being surrounded by like really cool people like Frank, because Frank and I weren't always like buddy, and I met you later in life.
Yeah.
And you've been nothing but a gentleman to me, and you have been nothing but kind, and I really appreciate you sitting down telling us your
Just
story.
want to try
today.
to help.
I
I
appreciate
appreciate
it,
what
man.
you do.
You're a good dude, and that wife of yours,
Yeah,
she's
the
a good
best.
lady.
Absolutely.
She's a real
She's
good
a keeper.
lady. She's a real good lady.
100%. She's to the right of me, so. Keeps me
All
in
right.
line.
So this is going to be a new thing. We're going to sit and have conversations like this, and we're going to talk to other people, and hopefully you like it, and maybe you won't, but who gives a shit? We're telling the truth, right?
Yep, so
You good?
sit back, buckle in, and enjoy the ride.
Get your enemas. You good?
I'm over here too.
Yeah, Dan's here. Dan was helping us out.
Dan!
Okay, thank you.